The Strongest Sect. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 276. Be prepared for a rainy day. After drinking with City Lord Jun Changxiao understood that the world seemed peaceful, but undercurrents were surging. If a war broke out in southwest Yangzhou, Qingyang County would definitely be destroyed. When the nest is overturned, how can the eggs remain intact? The Tegu sectors in Qingyang City. Once the war comes, it will definitely be affected. So helping City Lord is also helping himself. It still takes time. Jun Changxiao said with a smile. The sect is now in its infancy. If the outside county starts a war and attacks Qingyang County, it will definitely be difficult to organize forces to resist. As long as there is enough time to become strong, it will be able to protect itself. How long will it take? The longer the better. Of course. Jun Changxiao doesn't want to be a savior. If the war really comes, it will only protect Qingyang City, where the sect is located. As for other cities, well, considering the relationship with the AI family, if you have the ability, you will naturally try your best to help. If it really doesn't work, you can only focus on defense. Sect leader Jun has no ambition to dominate the world, because that is the business of the emperor-style protagonists. How can a sect leader like him interfere in other people's affairs? Master Li. In the hall, Jun Chang smiled and said, order the members of Xiaotang to purchase a large amount of ore in various cities. War depends not only on people, but also on sophisticated equipment. Regardless of whether it can be used for refining, it is definitely a good idea to buy it and stockpile it first. Li Luoqiu said, war is fought on the economy, not just immediately. Sect leader, you are worrying too much. Be prepared for danger in times of peace. Jun Chang smiled. Okay. Li Luoqiu rubbed her jade hands and said, you have to pay. Jun Chang smiled and threw a few space rings. Li Luoqiu checked and found that there were a total of 50 million teals, so he asked a little confusedly, how much do you plan to buy? Jun Changxiao handed over the materials that could be refined, such as the cold edge sword, and said, buy the ore according to the above first. If there is no ore, buy other ores. Yes. Li Luoqiu summoned Dush and others, distributed the silver notes, and ordered them to go to the 8 cities of Qingyang City to purchase as quickly as possible. The members of Xiao Hall who learned the Zhangyan step were very efficient and bought back in just 2 or 3 days. The 3 ore materials of the cold edge sword, overlord spear and giant shield were all replenished, and a lot of other ores of different qualities were also purchased. As for the 50 million teals, they were naturally spent cleanly. Since Jun Changxiao wanted to prepare for a rainy day, he naturally didn't feel bad about the money. After practicing, he opened the foundry pavilion to start casting weapons and equipment. After an inventory, more than 200 cold edge swords and more than 300 overlord spears were refined. Because the iron shield had obtained a large amount of iron ore from the Zhao family before, more than 700 were directly refined. Even so, it was impossible for the sect's thousands of disciples to be equipped with weapons and shields. The ambitious county governor knew when the war would be fought, so after making a lot of equipment and hoarding ores, Jun Changxiao continued to practice. During this period, he had been taking key gathering pills and absorbing spiritual stones. The speed of spiritual energy cultivation was quite fast. In just 1.5 months, he broke through from the 8th grade to the 9th grade martial artist. There is a high improvement, but also a high cost. In more than 40 days, the number of spiritual cores absorbed by the sect master Jun reached 450, consuming an average of 10 per day. Not counting the key gathering pills, just the spiritual stones. This guy has to spend 100,000 teals every day, which is really super expensive. Even the masters of 4th and 5th rate sects may not be able to afford such a practice. The inner disciples also practiced key gathering pills plus spiritual stones, and their realms were significantly improved. Yi Xingchen entered the 4th grade martial artist. Li Qingyang, Xiao Zuji and others have entered the 3rd grade martial arts master. Shine Qi, who has a superior spiritual root, was a step behind in breaking through to the martial arts master. Although he was later supplied with spiritual stones, he has just entered the second grade martial arts master. At this time, there are less than 3 months left before going to the challenge of Strongest Sect. If there is still enough spiritual stone supply, it should not be difficult to reach the 5th grade martial arts master on average. But, it's gone. On the contrary, during this period, the key gathering pills were harvested and planted by Wenileo and others, forming a virtuous cycle and achieving self-sufficiency. High multiple key gathering pills are good, but as the realm is raised, it will take time, even if you take them all the time. It's already very good. If the outside warriors knew that the inner disciples of the Tegu sect were supplied with 10 to 15 times the key gathering pills throughout the journey, they would definitely be envious and vomit blood. Jun Changxiao made up his mind and went down the mountain to Qingyang City in person. He spent 20 million to buy 2,000 spiritual stones for himself and his disciples to practice and prepare for the challenge of Strongest Sect. The 100 million sent by the head of the AI family was used to buy seeds, ore, and so many spirit stones. He spent almost nothing. The gap between them and the deep-rooted sects was huge. How could they overtake them without relying on the system and a lot of money? During the period of cultivation, the sect held a small sect competition every 3 months and a monthly strength test. Even if the spring and autumn method was used to accelerate the progress of time, such things should still be carried out. Just because it was not written, it did not mean that it had not happened. Similarly, the head of the AI family would send resources to a fixed point, and the medicine hall would also harvest medicinal materials and plant them in a cycle. 2 months later, there were only about 10 days left to challenge the Strongest Sect. The discussion outside was getting more and more intense. Many warriors were always paying attention to the latest news. For example, did the Tegu sect set out? The people of the 100 Sects Alliance even placed spies at the foot of the mountain. As long as Jun Changxiao led his disciples to set out, they would set off for the Strongest Sect. Cheering for the Tegu sect? Impossible. They had to go to see the joke. They had to show off their existence by being sarcastic and mocking like a brainless villain. The reason why they didn't set out in advance and sent spies was that they were afraid that the Tegu sect would give up the battle, so they were just supervising. The meaning of the 100 Sects Alliance was very simple. Since they had challenged the Strongest Sect, they had to fight like men. They absolutely couldn't stand up. In Qingyang City, city lords had already started to arrange matters to spare enough time to cheer for the Tegu sect. In this regard, the AI family performed better and even postponed the challenge because the day of the auction was close to the day of the challenge. When all forces were extremely pessimistic about the Tegu sect, city lords and the AI family could still stand firm on this side, which was a true friendship in adversity. The day of the battle was approaching. The originally quite peaceful Qingyang County became lively, and some forces in other counties also moved. It was unprecedented for an 8th-rate sect to challenge a 5th-rate sect, so they naturally had to go to the Strongest Sect to see the excitement. Myohua Palace, surrounded by spiritual energy, Jun Changxiao sat in the poetic pavilion and said, "The day for Sect Master Jun to challenge the Holy Spring Sect is coming soon. 10 days left." Leah muttered to herself. It has been more than half a year since the last auction ended. Why does the palace master still remember the Iron Bone Sect? "Get ready," Jun Changxiao said. "Go to the Holy Spring Sect." "Yes." Junior Sister Murin. On a county official road, a woman in tight clothes said, "I heard that a sect that is not in the mainstream is going to challenge a 5th-rate sect. Do you want to go and see the excitement?" She looks good, but compared to the junior sister walking in front, she is obviously inferior. The woman walking in front is about 16 or 17 years old. She is dressed in blue, her skin is as white as snow, her figure is slender, her face is oval, her eyebrows are willow-shaped, and she exudes a noble aura. This is Xiao Zhuge's ex-fiancée, Mirengzin. The warriors on the road seemed to know that the two were disciples of the Lily Holy Sect, and they avoided them one after another, with fear in their eyes. "A sect that is not in the mainstream," Mirengzin said. The senior sister said, "It seems to be called Tai something sect. Oh, by the way, the loser who was engaged to my junior sister is in the same county." Iron Bone Sect? Miranzin was silent for a moment and said, the training is over. There is still plenty of time. It's just on the way. Why not go over and take a look? Junior sister. The senior sister smiled and said, you have already broken through to the 9th grade martial artist. Your speed is the fastest among the new disciples. You will definitely get good results in the sect competition soon. It's all because of the good teaching of the elders. Murungzin said modestly. The senior sister said, how can the loser from Qingyang County be worthy of a proud girl like my junior sister? It is a wise move to cancel the engagement with him. Murungzin frowned and said, senior sister, can you not mention him? P.S. Please recommend and vote for me, and thank you all for your awards. Chapter 277 Peak Martial Master, Epic Quest 3. There are only 10 days left to challenge the Holy Spring Sect. It is not too short, nor too long. In the past few days, Li Qingyang, Xiao Zuji and others have stopped practicing and started to adjust their status to better meet the upcoming battle. So, what is their realm now? Li Qingyang, Xiao Zuji, Suzaomo and Li Fei have broken through to the 5th grade martial artist. Shinqi is a 4th grade martial artist, just one step away from the 5th grade. Yi Xingchen, who practices Taixu and Zhenjing, is still ahead of them and broke through to the 6th grade martial artist early. Not only inner disciples, some outer disciples with good qualifications have also broken through to the peak martial apprentices in the past few months. Long Xiang and Yang Yu entered the martial arts master first. Because they are not inner disciples, they only have the resources of Qijudan, so they have just entered the 1st grade. New disciples, except Yao Mengying who did not practice martial arts, all broke through to martial apprentices, and they are all above the 2nd and 3rd grades. Because of the body shaping pills and shaping rooms, their strength is far stronger than the same level of martial artists. If the 2 elders of the certification hall come to certify again, they will definitely be deeply shocked. Of course, the disciples of Tegu sect do not just practice blindly, but also focus on comprehending the skills, so that the martial arts and martial arts can advance together. Li Luoqiu also moved from the 6th grade martial arts master to the 7th grade. This woman has always focused on hidden weapons and body movements, so her realm is not improved too fast. VIP and Mountain Cat have entered the 4th grade martial arts master. The former member of the Gold Medal Killer also relied on the resources of the sect to move from martial arts apprentice to martial arts master. After Li Qingyang's inventory, there are more than 20 disciples who have reached the martial arts master level, and they have long met the requirement of 10 martial arts masters to be promoted to the 6th rate sect. Now, what Tegu sect lacks is the head of the sect to enter the martial arts sect, and if there are 510 disciples who have opened the meridians for the 12th stage, they can be promoted to the 6th rate. The sect still has 1000 disciple quotas, and what is lacking is recruitment. If Jun Changxiao cannot break through to the martial arts sect, even if all the disciples meet the requirements, it will not work. Some people will ask, can't the head of the sect be as powerful as the martial arts sect? No. The certification hall certifies the realm first, and then the power. Neither of them can be missing. At present, it may take time for the Tegu school to advance to the 6th level, because according to the previous rhythm, as long as Jun Changxiao reaches the end of a realm, an epic task will be issued. If the task cannot be completed, the realm will always be stuck. Boom. In the training room, Suzaomo kicked the test machine, and the strength value displayed was 80,000 Jin, so she grinned. Only top level geniuses can hit this kind of strength value at the level of a 5th grade martial artist. Under normal circumstances, the first element of a top level genius is to have a holy or divine spiritual root. Although Suzaomo only has a top grade spiritual root, with the tempering of the body shaping pill and the training tower, the gap in spiritual roots is made up, and it is almost the same as a top level genius. An ordinary person with ordinary talent, and destined to be mediocre becomes a top genius after a year. This is Jun Changxiao's training. It's not enough. His goal is to make his disciples the pride of heaven and the existence respected by all living beings. Respected by all living beings? That's right, it's to enter the martial emperor. Boom. Xiao Zuji punched the test machine, and the strength was 83,000 Jin. Suzuomo, who was a little proud, grabbed her hair and collapsed, saying, "At the same realm, junior brother Zio is 3000 jin higher than me." Ziozuji laughed and said, "Senior brother Su is far behind in speed." Suzuomo immediately felt balanced. Li Qingyang came over and said, "We are not as strong as junior brother Zio." Suzuomo, who had just found the balance point, fell on the wall with tears in her eyes after hearing what the second senior brother said. Boom. Li Qingyang punched the test machine, and the strength value was 85,000 jin. The reason why he was 2000 jin higher than Ziozuji was that the former had not opened his meridians at that time, and was ahead when he focused on physical training. Boom. Boom. Xianqi and Li Fei tested one after another, and their strengths were 60,000 jin and 78,000 jin respectively. With the same resources and both working very hard, the difference in strength at the same realm is often not too big. Xianqi only has 60,000. Firstly, he is only a 4th grade martial artist, and secondly, he also has a top grade spiritual root. Suzuomo and Li Fei mainly practiced physical skills. Although their strength is a little weak, they also have their own strengths. Ziozuji mainly practiced physical training. When facing a high-grade 5th grade fire dragon beast, even if he can't completely withstand it, he should have no problem fighting for dozens of rounds. "Junior brother Yi, you can try it too," Li Qingyang said. Humph. Yi Xingchen came over, gathered spiritual energy in his fist and hit the test machine, and the power was obviously 90,000 pounds. "My god, junior brother Yi is amazing. He joined later than all of us, but his strength is 5,000 kilograms higher than that of our second senior brother. Junior brother, how did you do it?" Suzuomo and Li Fei exclaimed. Yi Xingchen was silent, and said helplessly in his heart, "This emperor has the Taixuan Sutra, and his realm is still a 6th grade martial artist, but he is only 5,000 kilograms higher than Li Qingyang. It's necessary." Jun Changxiao gave them so many resources. If Emperor Yi can leave everyone far behind, doesn't it prove that everything provided by the system is not as good as a martial emperor reborn? In fact, Yi Xingchen was wrong. He shouldn't think about how much stronger he is than Li Qingyang and others, but how big the gap is with the 6th grade martial artist in his previous life. Very big. Although he had a divine spiritual root in his previous life, he had to fight for all the resources. It took him 3 years to enter the 6th grade martial artist, and his strength was only about 70,000. In this life, he entered the 6th grade in 1 year, and his strength is 20,000 kilograms higher than that. What's the reason? Although the Taixuan Sutra contributed to this, it only accounted for 20%, and 80% was due to the various martial arts resources provided by Jun Changxiao. Hoo. In the study, strong spiritual energy whistled out from Jun Changxiao's body and continued for about half an hour before it began to be restrained. Swish. He opened his eyes, and 2 brilliant rays of light flashed by. So far, his realm has gone from a 9th grade martial artist to a peak martial artist. In 2 months, he has gone from a 9th grade martial artist to a peak martial artist. This shows that, as long as there are enough resources, it is not difficult to break through quickly. Ding. The host has reached the peak martial artist, meeting the requirements, and the epic task has started. Sure enough, it's here again. Jun Changxiao opened the data panel, and an epic task appeared under the sect task, which was, lead the disciples to challenge the Strongest Sect unfinished. This task is actually related to the Strongest Sect. Click to open the detailed introduction. Epic Task 3. Task details. Please take the disciples to Shengquan Mountain within 1 month to challenge the 5th-rate sect Shengquan Sect. Mission conditions. The disciple defeated 0/3 disciples of Shengquan Sect, defeated 0/10 inner disciples of Shengquan Sect, and defeated 0/30 outer disciples of Shengquan Sect. Mission failed. Failed to go to Shengquan Sect within the time limit. Failed to defeat Shengquan Sect disciples during the mission. Mission reward. It seems quite simple. Jun Chang smiled. The big boss of the epic mission 2 is a high-grade 5th grade fire dragon beast. No matter how powerful the direct disciples of Shengquan Sect are, can they be stronger than a beast comparable to a 5th grade martial arts sect? The system said. The host solved the fire dragon beast with the help of the difficult to retract sword. The disciples were almost wiped out in front of it. Jun Changxiao was silent. PS. 5 more chapters are here. Please recommend and vote for me. Chapter 278 Departure. Epic Mission 3 is related to Strongest Sect, which is very good. After all, Jun Changxiao also wants to take his disciples to challenge. If completed, not only can the sect be honored, but also contribution points can be obtained, breaking through to Wu Zhang, which can be said to kill 3 birds with 1 stone. However, the plan to challenge will also change greatly. At the beginning, Jun Changxiao thought that it would be enough to take the inner disciples and Zhao Hong, but judging from the number of tasks, he can only take the outer disciples. According to the normal challenge rules, one person fights one battle, which requires 43 disciples. Besides, there are many battles this time, and Jun Changxiao does not expect to win all, so after some thought, he decided to take 50 disciples. Needless to say, the 25 people who participated in the Death Valley experience will definitely go with them. Li Shangshan and Sima Zhangde and others are naturally indispensable. After all, they entered the sect early and their realm is higher than that of the later ones. Disciples like Lin Jianghang and Cui Bujian were also sent. Although Song Zuanzhao entered the sect late, his qualifications and realm are high, so he will definitely go with him. After a selection by Sect Master Jun, all the elite disciples of the Tegu sect came out. Of course, he didn't send Viper and Mountain Cat. After all, they were too old and didn't look like disciples. Master. At the entrance of the cafeteria, Ma Yangning held a knife and said, "Can I go?" This guy joined the sect. Although he often helped Liu Wanshi take care of the cafeteria, he didn't delay his martial arts practice at all. Moreover, he was a dedicated sword cultivator. Sword cultivators and sword cultivators are rare in Xinjiang continent because they have to test their qualifications and are too extreme. You are too old. Jun Chang smiled. This sentence was like a sharp sword, piercing Ma Yangning's heart, and it hurt so much that he couldn't breathe. Master, he said in a deep voice, I just look a little vicissitudes, and my actual age is only 29 years old. Damn. If I hadn't said that, I would have suspected that he was in his 40s or 50s. Jun Changxiao's mouth twitched and said, you look more anxious than Yang Yuhe. Ma Yangning said with a serious look, please let me fight and prove it to the master with my strength, and prove it to Dudu. He wanted to fight, because of Liu Wanshi. The little girl often sat in the cafeteria with her chin in her hand, looking at the disciples practicing outside, and muttered to herself, I really hope to challenge Strongest Sect, and the master can take me with him. Go to watch the fun. Ma Yangning said. Liu Wanshi said seriously, go to cheer for the brothers. The seemingly casual words touched Ma Yangning, and he secretly decided that he must go to challenge Strongest Sect, defeat his opponent with strength, and make Liu Wanshi happy. Just yesterday, the little girl finally got the qualification to follow the master to Strongest Sect to cheer, so he naturally had to fight. Clang. Ma Yangning drew his sword and said, Master, please respect a swordsman, otherwise, I will immediately commit suicide in front of you. Jun Changxiao's mouth twitched. Liu Wanshi was defeated with just a few bowls of rice, and you are talking about respect. However, since he was going, he said, you can go, but it depends on the situation, to decide whether to fight. Okay. Ma Yangning put away the sword. 1 black and 2 black also came over and said, Master, we are much younger than him. Can we fight for the sect? Hearing this, Ma Yangning almost drew his sword and challenged the 2 bastards to a battle of dignity. 1 black and 2 black were indeed very young, only in their early 20s, and their realm had already reached the peak of martial arts. Jun Changxiao decided to take them with him. The number of players increased from 50 to 53. Then, Jun Changxiao selected 147 outer disciples to make up a total of 200. Fighting away from home must be impressive, so the purpose of those outer disciples following is to cheer for the fighting disciples. After everything was settled, 5 days before the day of the challenge, Jun Changxiao gathered the disciples early. The disciples all knew that the master was going to take his senior brother to challenge the 5-flow Strongest Sect, so they gathered in the martial arts field, lined up neatly, and all held their heads high. Jun Changxiao stood in front of the main hall and said, "This battle may be difficult, but we must let the world know that, even if there is a mountain in front of us, our Iron Bone Sect can overcome it. Be an Iron Bone person, and do Iron Bone things." The disciples put their hands behind their backs and said loudly, their voices resounding over the sect, exuding an Iron Bone aura. Swish. Jun Changxiao waved his knee shield and said, "Let's go." Yes. Under his leadership, the 53 disciples who went to the battle and the 147 disciples walked out of the sect in a mighty manner, and walked down the mountain road. Liluoqiu watched them leave, and said in a voice transmission, "Master, the celebratory wine is ready. I and the disciples are waiting for your triumphant return." Yes. Jun Changxiao said with a smile. After seeing them off, the disciples returned to the sect, and began to practice more crazily. They wanted to become stronger and win supreme honor for the sect in the future. This day, 200 disciples of the Strongest Sect, led by the second sect leader, left Tegu Mountain and headed for the unreachable mountain in the distance. This battle, if they don't succeed, they will die. The Tegu sect's people have set off. Go report to the leader. The spy squatting in the dark at the foot of the mountain hurriedly sent the news to Heoki sect. Jun Changxiao had already discovered these people, but because he was just following them, he ignored them. Not long after, the news reached Qin Huang's ears, and he smiled coldly. Jun Changxiao really dared to challenge Shenquan sect. The leader of the Changdao sect grinned and said, "In Lingquan Mountain, in front of so many people, you boasted in front of so many people. How can you gain a foothold in the world if you don't go?" Situ Wang, who was vomiting blood, said lightly, "You ignorant youngsters, go and experience the fear of the fifth-rate sect. Let's go." Qin Huang said, "Let's set off too." Not long after Jun Changxiao left, dozens of big wigs from the 100 Sects Alliance each brought their own disciples and headed towards Shenquan sect. The Iron Bone Sect's challenge to the Holy Spring sect is an unprecedented feat. As a force in the same county, they should have given support, but they went there just to see the joke. Someone went there to support and cheer. Who? Ziguancan and the AI family. Just as Jun Changxiao walked out of the Iron Bone Mountain, he saw City Lord Z and more than 10 heads of the major families in Qingyang City at the fork in the road. "Master Jun." Ziguancan bowed and said, "On behalf of the 3.6 million people of Qingyang City, I and the heads of the families are willing to travel with the Iron Bone Sect." "Thank you." Jun Changxiao bowed. He was very grateful to be able to give support at this time, and he also deeply understood that there were at least people with true nature in this world who supported him. "Dad," Li Qingyang shouted to his father. Patriarch Li said, "My son, the Li family is proud of you." Master Jun. Just as Jun Changxiao was about to set off, on another road, Ai Shangni came with Ai Shangfang and Ai Shank, followed by many family heads in Huang City, including Song Zuantao's father, Mr. Song, who said that the protagonist must bear the fate of being an enemy of the whole world. Who said that the whole world is plotting against the protagonist? No. In a cruel world, friendship also exists. Even if this friendship may be based on business, but to challenge the Shenquan sect and dare to accompany it, this is an iron relationship. Everyone. Jun Changxiao said, "Today, you cheered for my Tegu sect. This kindness will be remembered in my heart. If you need my Tegu sect in the future, I will do my best to help." The words were quite serious, but the people who followed him smiled in response. They would never have thought that Master Jun's words would be so hard to find, and so precious in the future. Chapter 279, Holy Spring Sect. There are many places with abundant spiritual energy in Xinjiang continent, and many sects will choose to build near mountains and rivers. Thousands of miles away from Qingyang County, there is such a mountain. The spiritual energy in the mountain is lingering, and the mountain spring contains majestic spiritual power. It is called the Holy Spring by the world, so it is named Shenquan Mountain. 800 years ago, a strong man came here to establish a sect, founded the Shenquan sect, and worked hard to develop it. Today, it has become a fifth-rate sect, and it has a pivotal position in the area of thousands of miles. Many warriors believe that the success of the Shenquan sect today has a lot to do with the Holy Spring, because that kind of water is drunk all year round, which must be of great help to martial arts. Unfortunately, It is difficult for warriors who are not from the sect to drink it. On this day, in front of the gate of the Shenquan sect surrounded by spiritual energy, various forces came one after another and climbed up step by step along the stone stairs with hundreds of years of history. The fifth-rate sect is really magnificent. A warrior looked at the rich spiritual power gathered on the mountainside with envy. If it weren't for the Tegu sect challenging the Shenquan sect, I'm afraid we wouldn't have the chance to enter such a big sect. By the way, the 8th-rate sect in Qingyang County is really bold. It dared to challenge the Shenquan sect with an egg against a rock. These days, what can't the emerging sects do to stand out? Challenging the 6th-rate sect is okay, but if you challenge the 5th-rate sect, if you lose, you won't be able to survive in the martial arts world. The warriors from all parties who climbed up the Shenquan mountain were discussing. They came from other counties. Although they came to see the Tegu sect challenge the Shenquan sect, they actually wanted to visit the big sects. Why? Because they didn't take the Tegu sect seriously at all. Once the challenge started, they would definitely be beaten terribly. If it was a 6th-rate sect, he might still be optimistic about it, but when the 8th-rate sect faced the 5th-rate sect, no one with a normal mind thought it could win. The Shenquan sect is really big. The outer courtyard martial arts arena alone is comparable to the venue of the Liang City sect competition. The main hall is even more magnificent, exuding an ancient atmosphere, and it is very old at first glance. This is the heritage of the sect that has been established for 800 years. Even some emerging 5th-rate sects may not be able to compare with it. After the warriors from all walks of life came in, they looked at the unique architecture in the solemn and majestic hall, and they all stood in awe. It is worthy of being a big sect. Just standing at the entrance of the outer courtyard, a feeling of worship rose faintly in their hearts. However, when they saw the disciples with sword eyebrows and star eyes busying back and forth, the breath they exuded was all at the level of martial artists, and they were deeply shocked. Who hasn't seen a martial artist? However, the martial artists of the Shenquan sect, judging from their momentum alone, are at the middle and higher levels. In fact, each level of the martial arts realm of the Xingyan continent is also divided more finely, including ordinary, medium, high and extreme levels. Let's talk about the martial artist level. The power increase of each grade ranges from 1000 to 2000. The lowest power increase value is called the ordinary martial artist, reaching 1500 is called medium, and reaching 2000 is high. The strength of a top class martial artist can reach 2500. The increase in strength depends on various factors of talent, so the top class martial artist is what people often call a top genius. So, what is the difference between a top class and an ordinary martial artist? Yes, and it is very big. Take the peak martial artist for example. The strength of an ordinary martial artist is 12,000 jin at most, and the strength of a top class martial artist must start at 25,000 jin at the minimum. The difference is twice, and the top class martial artist can definitely kill the ordinary peak martial artist in seconds. The disciples of the Shenquan sect who were busy in the outer courtyard had steady steps and a strong aura, which made the leaders of all forces see at a glance that this was definitely a middle to high level martial artist. It is already good to have a few middle to high level martial artists in one's own sect, and the 5th-rate sect can be seen everywhere. This is a huge gap. Everyone. At this time, a graceful disciple came and said in a gentle manner, "The wing room has been arranged. Please follow me." Everyone was shocked again. This disciple should be less than 20 years old, but he has the cultivation of martial artist, and his aura is very strong. He is definitely at the top level. He is one of the disciples of Shenquan sect, named King Linfeng. Is he the young master Linfeng who went to Jianalang village alone with a 3-foot-long sword and wiped out more than 300 bandits? TSK. Heroes emerge from youth. Everyone followed behind, their eyes rising with awe. Shenquan sect let a disciple with top grade spiritual roots and a disciple come to arrange a place for them. It was really face saving. Wait. At this moment, everyone's eyes stopped at the intersection leading to the inner courtyard and saw a beautiful woman who walked in surrounded by female disciples. That's the palace master of Maihua Palace. My god, why is the leader of a 4th-rate sect here too? Did they just happen to be guests of Shenquan sect? Everyone was surprised. King Linfeng said, palace masters he heard that Tegu sect was going to challenge Shenquan sect, so he came to watch the fun. Everyone's mouth twitched. It was incredible that an 8th-rate sect challenged a 5th-rate sect, and it was a bit hard to accept that it also alarmed the 4th-rate Mayapa palace. At this time, 2 young girls walked out of the inner courtyard. The lily pattern on their shoulders was very eye-catching. Everyone's eyes widened. Could this lily pattern be? King Lin Feng said, "They are disciples of the Lily Holy Sect, and they are also here to watch the fun." Hiss. Everyone gasped. Tegu sect challenged Shenquan sect, and it even alarmed people from a 2nd-rate sect. What kind of world is this? That young girl, it seems to be Mirangxin, the genius girl of Mirang family in Xianhai City? TSK, I have heard of this girl. She has superb spiritual roots, and is known as the proud daughter of Xianhai County. The 11th elder of the Lily Holy Sect took a fancy to her, and went to the Mirang family, to accept her as a disciple, which caused a huge sensation at the time. The most sensational thing is, that she brought people from the Lily Holy Sect to the Xiao family in Qingyang County to cancel the engagement. I also heard that it seems that a genius with superb spiritual roots appeared in the 9th class county, but later his cultivation level regressed, and he became a waste, and was divorced by his fiancée Mirangxin. In the Xinjiang continent, men divorce women. I didn't expect that women would divorce men. This is really cowardly. The discussion of the crowd reached Mirangxin's ears, and a trace of anger appeared in her bright eyes. "Junior sister." The senior sister whispered, "Don't bother with these superficial men." Everyone also saw Mirangxin's anger, and hurriedly shut up, and followed King Lin Feng to the inner courtyard. Senior sister said, "Junior sister and that loser broke off the engagement. It's a thing of the past, but you can't stop someone from talking, so don't take it too seriously." Mirangxin said nothing, feeling guilty. Only she knew that she was not angry because others were talking about her, but because they were laughing at Xiao Ziji. It is undeniable that the two of them no longer have any relationship, but he became a laughingstock because he was young and ignorant, and broke off the engagement. "Xiao Ziji, I'm sorry, I just want to pursue freedom, and don't want to hurt you." Mirangxin murmured in her heart. Is sorry useful? This is a matter of opinion. But in Jun Changxiao's opinion, whether Mirangxin did it intentionally or not, her actions have caused great damage to Xiao Ziji and a man's dignity. 2 years later, she will definitely take her disciples to the Lily Holy Sect to seek justice. In the past world, young people can be exempted from legal responsibility, but in the Starfall continent, if you have done something wrong, you must pay the price, because the strong are respected here. Really guilty? Sure, bring those people from the Holy Lily sect who used to go to the Xiao family and have a burst of superiority complex to my Iron Bone Sect to apologize. That will show that you are sincere. Chapter 280 Crazy. In just a few days, various forces entered Shenquan sect and experienced the grand atmosphere and hundreds of years of heritage of a 5th-rate sect. Of course, the Tegu sect was also waiting for the challenge. Calculating the time, there was only 1 day left before the challenge. Why hasn't that overconfident sect come yet? Will they be scared? Will they not come? Many forces have thought about this possibility, but they won't be too angry. After all, the purpose of this visit is to see a 5th-rate sect. Scared? Not coming? Sorry, it's at dusk. Sect Master Jun brought 200 disciples, accompanied by City Lord Z and the AI family, and stopped in front of the mountain gate of Shenquan sect. Who is coming? The gatekeeper disciple said. Swish. Jun Changxiao showed the waist badge engraved with the 4 words Iron Bone Sect, and with a breath of ki in his danshan, he shouted loudly, "The leader of the Tegu Sect, Jun Changxiao, comes to challenge Shenquan sect." The voice was sonorous and powerful, echoing halfway up the mountain, and reaching Shenquan sect. "Here they come, here they come." The leader of the Tegu sect is standing at the foot of the mountain, and he dares to shout so loudly. He is so brave. If he is timid, would he come all the way to Shenquan sect to be abused? I'm really impatient. I want to see whether the leader of the Tegu sect has 3 heads or 6 arms. No matter how many heads and arms he has, he is destined to lie down if he comes to challenge Shenquan sect. Warriors from all sides discussed. Leader Qin and the big bosses of the alliance who came first had smiles on their faces. When they heard the forces from all sides laughing at Jun Changxiao, they felt comfortable all over, which was more refreshing than breaking through the realm. This is a group of pitiful people. Why? Because in Qingyang County, there is nothing they can do about the Tigu sect, and they can only rely on the discussions of warriors from other counties to soothe their long suppressed hearts. If Jun Changxiao knew, he would definitely look down on him. Only trash would comfort themselves in such a ridiculous way. Lia Zijingsun, who was sitting in the small hall of the inner courtyard, heard Jun Changxiao's voice and laughed. It's him. He's really here. Lia curled her lips and said, he really dares to come. Before and after coming to Strongest Sect, she had been telling the palace master that the Tigu sect might give in and not dare to challenge. Ha ha ha. Ma Yunteng, who was playing chess in the inner courtyard wing room, made a move and laughed. Master Jun is here. Wang Donglin said. He first challenged Aoki sect, and now he's challenging Strongest Sect. This kid is really reckless. Young people. Ma Yunteng said, it's not bad to be reckless. He's here. He's here. Murung's stood at the window of the wing room, with mixed emotions rising in her heart. Although Xiao Zuji won the sect competition, and made her look at him with new eyes, wasn't it self-humiliating to follow the master of the Tigu sect to challenge Strongest Sect? Or did he no longer care about anything, after being rejected by her? Murung's inside. Strongest Sect, Back Mountain. Delu, who was sitting cross-legged in a cave, opened his eyes with green light after hearing the voice, and said coldly, Jun Changxiao, you are finally here. Brother Green Scarf accidentally gained devouring power at the foot of Black Eagle Hall Mountain, devoured the cultivation of Ghost Old Man, and broke through to the 7th grade martial arts apprentice. After returning to the sect, he participated in the sect's small competition and performed well, successfully promoted from an entry-level disciple to an outer disciple. Of course, he didn't dare to be too high profile, but concentrated on cultivation. During this period, he absorbed the vitality of many fierce beasts and plants in the back mountain, and his realm also stepped from a martial arts apprentice to a first-grade martial arts master. To be honest, Delu's development was restricted in the sect, because his special absorption power is destined to rely on the absorption of external forces to improve, and practicing step by step will only be slow. Delu also considered leaving, but thinking that Jun Changxiao would bring disciples to challenge, he endured for a few months. Destroy my Strongest Sect, and kill my cousin. With 2 big enemies in his body, if he doesn't do something, and just leaves like this, wouldn't it be too cowardly? Delu has been planning, and took out the crystal cores obtained during this period, successfully bribed an elder, and obtained a challenge quota. Jun Changxiao, I want you to know that I'm no longer the same as before. I heard that your Tigu sect is also divided into inner and outer sects. I will fight with your inner sect disciples. Even if I can't kill them, I will let them experience what pain is. Brother Green Scarf has decided. He will challenge the inner sect disciples of Tigu sect as an outer sect disciple. After doing this, he will leave Strongest Sect, and from then on, the sea is wide for fish to leap, and the sky is high for birds to fly. As for who to challenge, let's make a choice after the competition begins. Of course, if the sect allows, he will definitely choose the strongest inner sect disciple, which can not only hit Jun Changxiao, but also make him pretend. Brother Green Scarf, who has broken through the first grade martial artist, is determined to win tomorrow, because who is he? He is a devourer. What qualifications does he, a disciple of Tigu sect, have to compete with me? If you really want to challenge the strongest inner sect disciple of Tigu sect, not counting Luke Ianqian, the woman, then Yi Xingchen. Devourer vs. Rebirth of the Great Emperor. It seems quite interesting. The premise is that Brother Green Scarf must hold on, because this opponent is not as gentle as Li Qingyang and Xiao Zuji, and he is very brutal in the fight. Hehe. Delu covered his face and laughed strangely. Jun Changxiao, you and your disciples are destined to be stepping stones for me, Delu, to become the supreme power. Oh, may God bless you, our green turbaned brother. At the foot of the mountain, Jun Chang laughed and shouted, and several gatekeeper disciples of Strongest Sect immediately looked disdainful. The level of this Tigu sect is not high, and the leader is young and quite arrogant. Humph. One of them said lightly, "Master Jun, our Shinquan sect has been waiting for you to come. Please go up the mountain." Jun Chang laughed and flicked his sleeves, leading his disciples up the mountain. Yi Xingchen, who was walking on the stone steps, had an ugly face, and then reluctantly raised the magic modified speaker. "Damn. Why do you always let me carry it?" After reporting their names, the head of the AI family and the city lord Z and others hurriedly followed. And looking at the Tegu sect disciples going up the mountain, the momentum exuded was as strong as ever, and they were immediately full of admiration. Challenging a 5th-rate sect is undoubtedly a test like hell. These Tegu sect disciples can still be so calm. How did Master Jun train them? Creaky. The gate of Shenquan sect was pushed open. Jun Changxiao, wearing glare sunglasses, a mink coat, and a cigar in his mouth, walked over to the accompaniment of the God of Gamblers BGM. In an instant, warriors from all forces in the outer courtyard looked over. TSK. Pretentious. When the duel starts tomorrow, it will be considered a mercy of the Shenquan sect if he can leave standing. Everyone was disdainful of talking. However, when Jun Changxiao stood in the martial arts arena, when 200 disciples lined up neatly behind him, proudly straightened their bodies, and released their aura, the expressions on the faces of warriors from all forces suddenly froze. These disciples of the Iron Bone school had a strong aura and sharp eyes. Anyone who was not nearsighted or blind realized that they were definitely possessed by high-level martial artists. Are you dazzled? Oh my god, an 8th-rate sect. Wrong. Jun Changxiao held a cigar, showed the certification card given by the certification center, and said lightly, "If you have a pair of dog eyes like a lion's leaderkin, you may not be able to see clearly whether it is written as 8 or 7. He was confronted, as soon as he came, with full firepower. Qin Horan said angrily, "Jun Changxiao, you." Jun Changxiao raised his middle finger and said lightly, "You are a defeated general. You have no right to bark in front of me." He knew that this guy had been to Shenquan sect before, and he must have had some dirty deals with the other party. He also knew that he must want to see him laugh by bringing the alliance boss here today. "You are not happy with me, and I'm not happy with you. I will confront you. What's the point?" Qin Horan was so angry that his eyes were about to burst, and his body was shaking with anger, but he didn't say anything else. After all, he came to see him laugh, and he couldn't take over. Swish. Jun Changxiao shook off his mink coat, and his disciples stepped forward to catch it. The coquettish Jun sect master, with one hand, stroked his black hair up, and said, "I, the Strongest Sect, came to challenge, and Shenquan sect didn't come out to greet them. Is this the way for a big sect to entertain guests?" The corners of everyone's mouth twitched. It's worthy of the leader of an 8th, 7th-rate sect who dared to challenge Shenquan sect. This is really crazy. Li Zijingsun walked out of the inner courtyard and said with a smile, "Master Jun is so domineering. After I see the light again, I must see what he looks like." As she spoke, she was already fantasizing in her heart. He must have big eyes, a pointed nose, and long ears. The Master Jun imagined by Palace Master Z has already gone beyond the level of a human. Strictly speaking, he can be classified as a monster. P.S. Please recommend and vote for me. Chapter 281. Fight 30 or 40 games first. The warriors from all sides got what they wanted and saw Jun Changxiao. He didn't have 3 heads and 6 arms, but just 2 arms and 2 legs like everyone else. They were a little surprised that he confronted Alliance leader Qin as soon as he arrived. Many people knew that the two had grievances, but he was the leader of a sect after all. Even if there were any conflicts, they couldn't just talk nonsense as soon as they met, right? Especially when they heard that this was the way of hospitality of the big sect. The warriors from all sides suddenly realized that the leader of this 7th-rate sect was very crazy and arrogant. Yes, if he wasn't crazy and arrogant, dare to bring disciples to challenge the Shenquan sect? Being young is good. You are not afraid of anything. You don't care about anything. You rely on your passion and die in all kinds of ways. The disdain in everyone's eyes when they look at Jun Changxiao is even stronger. Smash it, young man. If you pretend to be cool, you will be struck by lightning. Swish. At this moment, an old man in his 70s flew out of the hall. He landed on the martial arts arena and laughed loudly. Master Jun, you are so honored to be here. We are so honored to be here. This person has a strong aura and is obviously a high-level martial arts sect. Elder Jun, who is in charge of the internal affairs of Strongest Sect. The leader of Strongest Sect has been in seclusion for many years, and all affairs are handled by Elder Jun. He can show up in person, which is enough to give face to Tegu Sect. In my opinion, this is a courtesy before force. Everyone whispered. They could catch a trace of dissatisfaction in Elder Jun's eyes. A low-level sect behaved so arrogantly in front of the sect. If it were them, they would definitely find it difficult to tolerate it. Jun Changxiao said lightly, my Tegu sect has come all the way here. Don't you plan to arrange accommodation for us to rest in Strongest Sect? Really? Too crazy. The disciples of Strongest Sect were furious. But after all, they came from a big sect, so they could restrain their anger and think in their hearts, when the challenge starts tomorrow, you won't be so arrogant. Elder Jin said, I have arranged the rooms long ago. Lin Feng, take sect leader Jun and the disciples of Tegu Sect to go. Yes. King Lin Feng walked out and made a gesture to invite him. Sect leader Jun, follow me. Jun Changxiao went to the inner courtyard under the eyes of everyone, and the disciples of Tegu Sect followed him. Even though they were scrutinized by a group of big men, they were not afraid at all. After they left, the warriors of various forces began to discuss in a low voice. This disciple of Tegu Sect is not simple. From the aura, it seems that they are all high-level martial artists. It's incredible that a 7th-rate sect can do this. In my opinion, maybe they took some kind of bluffing pill. Hearing someone questioning this, City Lord Z sneered in his heart. If you knew that the two elders who came from my Southwest Yangzhou certification headquarters gave the Tegu Sect a top 3 evaluation, you would understand whether it was a bluff or not. City Lord Z wanted to tell everyone loudly not to look down on others, but because sect leader Jun wanted to keep a low profile, he could only bear the pain. Strongest Sect still cares about the style of the sect, and settled the people of Tegu Sect in several courtyards with beautiful environment. Have a good rest. Jun Chang smiled and said, prepare for tomorrow's battle. Yes. After traveling thousands of miles, the disciples of Tegu Sect were still a little tired, and they all chose aside rooms to stay in. Ziozuji did not rest, but sat cross-legged in the stone pavilion in the courtyard, practicing Yijinjing, and continued to temper his body. Since joining the Tegu Sect and obtaining this divine mental method, he has developed a good habit of practicing anytime and anywhere. Suddenly, Ziozuji opened his eyes. Subconsciously looking at the entrance of the courtyard, he saw a graceful girl standing outside the gate looking at him. Murungzin. The inner courtyard of Strongest Sect is not small, and there is also a green area with unique scenery, which can be used by disciples to enjoy and relax after practicing. In the bamboo forest, Murungzin pinched the bamboo leaves and said, you seem to be stronger than last time. Is this the purpose of looking for me? Ziozuji sat on a boulder and spoke indifferently. He was surprised to see this woman in Strongest Sect, but it was just a surprise. Murungzin was silent for a while, and said, your leader is very chaotic, do you want to follow him, and do the same? Ziozuji understood. She must think that I, Tegu, was seeking death by sending people to challenge Strongest Sect. Ziozuji said indifferently, don't worry about my affairs, Mirung's proud daughter. After that, he stood up and returned to the courtyard. The broken engagement back then was like the last feather that broke the camel's back. It made me think for 5 years. I really don't want to have too much contact with this woman. Watching Ziozuji leave, Murungzin's eyes flashed with complex emotions. Every time she saw the man she broke off the engagement with, she would feel very guilty, blaming herself for the choice she made when she was young, causing him to bear the pain he shouldn't bear. Judging from Murungzin's psychological activities, she is not an arrogant woman, but she did the wrong thing at the wrong time. If the two of them still had an engagement, according to the customs of the Xinjiang continent, they should have been married by now, and there would be another pair of perfect couples in the world. It's a pity. It's destined to be unpredictable and miss a marriage. The next day, the weather was clear and cloudless. I won't look at the almanac, because from today's weather, I know that it is very suitable for competition. Jun Changxiao stood outside the martial arts field with his hands behind his back, facing the main hall of the Shenquan sect. The 200 disciples behind him stood tall, with a sense of pride between their brows. All the forces have also come over, and they are all secretly amazed. What confidence do these disciples of the 7th-rate sect have to be so fearless in front of the 5th-rate sect? Why? Because they are strong and unyielding. Ziguancan, Ai Shangni and others walked behind Jun Changxiao tacitly. Elder Ma and Elder Wang of the Kangshan sect also stood behind, clearly supporting the Tigu sect. Everyone was not surprised. After all, the Kangshan sect is in Qingyang County, and it is reasonable to support the sects in the county. There is nothing wrong with it. The positions of all forces are closer to the hall, which means that they believe that the Shenquan sect can win this challenge. Among them are alliance leader Qin and the bigwigs of all parties in the alliance. In particular, there is disdain and sneer in the eyes looking at Jun Changxiao. A broken car and a sports car are competing. Anyone with a normal brain will believe that the supercar can throw off the broken car with a single step on the accelerator. The Tigu sect is a broken car. The Shenquan sect is a sports car with superior performance. Jun Changxiao didn't care about the support of other forces, because as I said, no matter how much you look down on me, I will still be strong. Master Jun, Elder Jun, who was standing opposite, said, "How do you want to challenge?" Jun Changxiao said, "Let's start with the outer disciples. Let's play 30 or 40 games first, and the winner will be determined by the victory or defeat." Hearing this, everyone almost fell down. Play 30 or 40 games first. This guy, is he here to challenge, or to participate in the sect competition? Jun Changxiao didn't want to fight so many times. But the damn epic task must be completed by defeating 30 outer disciples of Shenquan sect. Chapter 282 Crush. Elder Jun's mouth twitched slightly, and he said, "Master Jun, are you sure you want to waste time and fight so many games? His Shenquan sect has 5 or 6,000 outer disciples. Not to mention fighting 30 or 40 games, he can send people to fight 300 or 400 games, but fighting one game at a time will definitely take time." Jun Chang smiled and said, "The victory and defeat will be determined quickly, and it won't waste much time." TSK. Everyone snorted coldly. That statement made it seem as if the Iron Bone Sect could win a quick battle. Jun Chang smiled and raised his hand. Swish. He, in full view of everyone, walked out to the martial arts arena. He was the first outer disciple to represent the Iron Bone Sect. To be honest, he was a little panicked. At this moment, Liu Wanshi shouted, "Brother He, come on." He, who was a little nervous, clenched his fists and straightened his back when he heard Liu Wanshi's cheering. The master asked me to go out first, and Dudu was watching from behind. The first battle, I must win, even if I have to fight hard. Step. He stopped in the middle of the martial arts arena and shouted loudly, "Zhang Zilin, a disciple of the Tiguz sect, please teach me." He shouted out a name that he had almost forgotten, and his voice hovered over the martial arts arena, exuding a proud aura. On the eve of the challenge, Jun Changxiao once said, "Your opponents may be very strong, but as a disciple of the Tiguz sect, your morale cannot be weak." He kept it in mind. When he shouted out his sect and his name loudly, the blood in his body seemed to burn in an instant. "I'm the first to appear. I want to boost the morale of my fellow disciples. I want to win the first battle." The other disciples of the Tigu sect also seemed to ignite their chest blood under his shouting. "We have come all the way here, and we are waiting only for the sect to fight." Seeing the Tigu sect disciple with such a strong momentum, the warriors from all sides shook their heads. There is no denying it. This boy is very good, but he is really not good enough in front of the 5th-rate sect. Elder Jun waved his hand. An outer disciple of the Shenquan sect came up. Sacred Spring Sect, Lu Yanqiang. The disciple who was going to fight also announced his name, and his momentum was as strong as his name. The competition begins. The referee shouted. Swish. Lu Yanqiang rushed over with mysterious footwork, which immediately attracted the praise of warriors from all sides. This is the unique body movement of the Holy Spring Sect, the Little 9 Steps. It's unbelievable that an outer sect disciple has comprehended it. The Iron Bone Sect disciple. Boom. While everyone was discussing, he concentrated his strength in his fist and punched Liu Yanqiang in the face, who was coming in a flashy way, and then blasted him out directly. Plop. He fell to the ground and fainted on the spot. One punch, flew out, and the game ended. Gap. The whole audience was silent. The expressions on the faces of the warriors of various sects froze, and their eyes gradually widened. The outer sect disciple of the Holy Spring sect was killed in one punch. Qin Horan and others, who were ready to watch the joke, instantly retracted the smiles on their faces, and their expressions were extremely ugly. He was also confused. The outer disciples of Shenquan sect are too weak, can't even withstand a punch from me. It's not that they are weak, it's that you are too strong. He has reached the peak martial arts level, and has been tempered in the shaping room and the training tower. The power of his punch is not as good as that of the extreme level, but it is also 20,000 pounds. What a concept. It is enough to rival the ordinary second grade martial artist. What about Liu Yanqiang? He is just an 8th grade martial artist, just average. How can he withstand such a strong force? This is still a disciple of Shenquan sect. If it were an outer disciple of a 6th or 7th grade sect, he would be killed with one punch. Ding. Defeat 1/30 of the outer disciples of Shenquan sect. Hearing the prompt sound in his ears, Jun Changxiao bowed and smiled. Thank you. The disciple killed the opponent in seconds and completed a mission goal, which was very cool. The warriors from all sides didn't come back to their senses for a long time. After all, it was too unexpected that the disciples of Tegu sect solved the disciples of Shenquan sect with one punch. I understand. The strategy of Tegu sect to challenge must be to let the strongest disciples fight first. Let the strongest disciples fight in the first match. Will you send anyone to fight in the next 30 or 40 matches? Alliance leader Qin and the big guys of the alliance thought so in their hearts, and sneered. Elder Jin frowned. He was a little careless in the first match, letting the Iron Bone Sect win first. Just treat it as a courtesy of the host, and don't give the Iron Bone Sect any face in the next matches. A 7th rate sect came to challenge, and if you, as a 5th rate sect, don't let them win in 1 or 2 games, you will definitely be gossiped about. Let's start the second match. Jun Changxiao waved his hand, and an outer disciple came out. This person is called Sun Zhao. Because he has a group of evil brothers, he is a little transparent in the Tegu sect. In fact, there are many transparent disciples. Because of the limited space, we can't give shots one by one, otherwise at least 3 or 5 chapters can be written. With this kind of plot climax, there must be readers who will say, 30 or 40 outer disciples fight. Well, 1 chapter per person. The author can write another 30 or 40 chapters. I would like to, but don't give a chance. Because even a little transparent like Sun Zhao can easily knock his opponent out after the fight begins. Watching the second disciple of the Shenquan sect fall outside the martial arts arena, the expressions on the faces of the warriors of various forces froze again. What the hell? How come another one was killed in seconds? Is the Shenquan sect not serious? Or does the Tegu sect continue to let the strong outer disciples fight? But the disciple named Sun Zhao is only a 7th grade martial artist, and the disciples of the Shenquan sect who fight are 9th grade martial artists. Why? Because the disciples of the Tegu sect are strong. Thank you. Jun Chang smiled and bowed. Elder Jin's eyebrows showed a trace of anger, and he immediately waved his hand and sent a peak martial artist to fight. A year ago, Mo Shangfei was only an 8th grade martial artist, but he could become an inner disciple of Shenquan sect because he had a top grade spiritual root. This peak martial artist only has a middle grade spiritual root, so he can only be an outer disciple. There are many disciples with middle grade spiritual roots in Shenquan sect. Although their realm is good, they can only be outer disciples because of the limitation of their spiritual roots. Yehoi. Jun Chang smiled and said, go to the battle. Yes. Yehoi rode in, his eyes full of fighting spirit, and Liu Wanshi behind him cheered for his fellow disciples as always. They announced their names, and the fight officially began, and then officially ended. Because Yehoi's strength was not inferior to Yehoi, he knocked the peak martial artist out with a burst punch. Decisive, no procrastination. 3 fights, 3 moves to kill. The warriors from all sides were deeply shocked by the toughness shown by the disciples of Tegu sect. Don't worry, the shock has just begun. Next, the two sides continued to fight. Although the outer disciples of the Tegu sect were not as qualified as the Shenquan sect, their bursts of power all reached a high level. As long as they entered the field, they would win. In a short period of time, the two sides fought 20 games. Although there were more than 2 moves during this period, it still could not reverse the fate of the Shenquan sect disciples being defeated. Ding. Defeat 20 over 30 outer disciples of the Shenquan sect. The system voice sounded again, which made Jun Changxiao shrugged and said, "It was very easy." This was extremely pretentious. But the warriors from all sides were silent. 20 disciples came on the field and defeated 20 outer disciples of the Shenquan sect with a crushing momentum. This is qualified to be pretentious. Chapter 283. 50 consecutive wins. League leader Qin and the big guys of the alliance looked extremely unhappy. They were ready to laugh at the joke from the beginning, but the Shenquan sect lost consecutively, which did not give them any chance to laugh. This plot was not what they thought at all. And those forces that had laughed at the Iron Bone Sect before also blushed. After all, if it were me, I would send outer disciples to fight with the outer disciples of the Shenquan sect. I would be lucky to win 3 out of 30 games. Palace Master Leah, who was standing in the distance, twitched her mouth and said, "The Iron Bone Sect won the 20th game." In her estimation, the Shenquan sect would definitely win 30 or 40 games if they played 30 or 40 games, but the result was a reverse poison milk wave. Zijingsun smiled and said, "Master Jun's disciples are so strong." Old Ma Wang Donglin twitched his mouth and said, "This Iron Bone Sect disciple is too fierce. He didn't lose a single game in 20 games. Ma Yunteng was also a little difficult to calm down at this moment. After all, even if his sect came to fight the Shenquan sect, there would definitely be a win or loss. The challenge continued. Lin Jianghang and other disciples who entered the sect earlier went to battle one after another and easily won the victory. Although their spiritual root qualifications have not changed in the past year, they have experienced various resources and physical transformations, and each of them has the strength of a high-level martial artist. What does it mean? It means that the top forces of the Tegu sect may not be as many as those of high-level sects, but the strength of the grassroots disciples is not inferior to them. Once they all grow up, it will be very scary. Elders out of the certification headquarters realized this and gave the Tegu sect a top 3 rating. The strength of a sect is not determined by a few people, but by the overall strength. Shaping pills, shaping rooms, spiritual power formations, training towers, various resources, and various martial arts are the strong capital of the Tegu sect's grassroots disciples. What about the Shenquan sect? Although it is a 5th-rate sect, its resources are limited and will definitely not be allocated to the outer sect. If the outer sect disciples want to be valued, they must work hard to be promoted to the inner sect so that they can enjoy more resources. In this comparison, whose disciples are happy? That's right. It's the Tegu sect. Although it is only a new sect, although it has only been more than a year. But the resources that Jun Changxiao gave his disciples are enough to lead this kind of sect for many years. I have come all the way here today. If I don't beat you up, will I be worthy of all the resources I have piled up? The outer disciples of Shenquan sect are either suppressed in realm or controlled in rank. Although some people can fight with their opponents for 20 or 30 rounds occasionally, they still can't avoid defeat. To be honest, it's a complete crushing. Boom. Another Tegu sect disciple knocked the outer disciple of Shenquan sect away, and the number of outer disciples defeated in epic tasks increased from 29 to 30. Ding. The disciple defeated the outer disciple of Shenquan sect, and the epic task completion rate was 20%. The host obtained 400 contribution points. Ding. Contribution value 1605/2000. TSK. Last time 20% gave 200 points, this time gave 400 points, it's really cool. Jun Changxiao bowed and said, "Elder Jun, we have fought 30 rounds. Is the competition between outer disciples over now?" "No." Elder Jun said in a deep voice, "Keep fighting. How can we save face if we don't win any of the 30 rounds? We must continue to fight. Even if we don't win all of them, we must win at least 10 rounds to save our face. What was the result? Sima Zanda, Cui Bujian, Lin Jianghang and other disciples fought one after another. With their powerful strength, they beat the outer disciples of Strongest Sect one by one. Bang! An opponent was kicked into the sky by Li Shangshan, and then he performed a golden hook in the air with the Zhangyan step, and directly blasted him more than 300 meters away. So far, the Tegu school won the 50th victory. Ding. The disciple defeated the outer disciples of Strongest Sect 50/50, met the hidden standard, completed 30% of the epic task, and the host obtained 200 contribution points. Ding. Contribution value 1805/2000. Jun Changxiao was stunned, grinning and said, "It turns out that there are 20 hidden victory places." When Li Shangshan kicked his opponent away and landed on the ground, the expressions on the faces of the warriors of various sects were numb. From the first to the 50th game, it was over in less than an hour. Strongest Sect, all defeated. Who would have thought that a 5th-rate sect would be so bloody and beaten by a 7th-rate sect? Elder Jun's hands were shaking. If it weren't for the forces of various parties, his face would have become ferocious with anger. Ma Yunteng and Wang Donglin were silent. The strength of the Tegu sect shocked them deeply. Junior sister. The senior sister standing next to Mirangzan said solemnly, "This is really incredible. Her sect has the strength to sweep the 5th-rate sect. After all, it is 2nd-rate. But a 7th-rate sect could do it so cleanly and neatly. If you hadn't seen it with your own eyes, you wouldn't have believed it." Outer sect disciples fought. Tegu sect used its strength to slap the faces of all the forces. "Fight again," Elder Jun said in a deep voice. Jun Chang smiled and said, "Elder Jun, my Tegu sect doesn't have as many people as your Strongest Sect. If we keep fighting like this, isn't it a bit of bullying?" Originally, 53 people were planned to fight, but the opponent refused to give in, so they had to let the cheering disciples go on the field. If they continued to fight, they would definitely not be able to beat the thousands of disciples. "Let's do this." Jun Chang smiled and said, "Send the inner sect disciples to fight." The outer sect disciples had fought enough and completed the hidden mission. The next step must be to fight the inner sect disciples. After all, completing the epic mission is more important. "Okay." Elder Jin agreed and raised his hand. A man wearing a green scarf walked onto the martial arts field, always with his head down, and it was obvious that his body was shaking. A little while, he raised his head and grinned. "Jun Changxiao, do you still remember me?" "Huh?" Jun Changxiao said in surprise. "You are the green-turbaned man who teased my eldest disciple outside Qingyang City?" The disciples of the Tegu sect were stunned. "My god. Dare to tease the cold senior sister. You are so brave. Stop talking nonsense." Delu raised his hand and pointed at a group of inner disciples of the Tegu sect with a strong aura and said with a cold look, "Send disciples to fight me." Heh. Jun Changxiao folded his hands and said, "Who do you want to fight?" "Humph." Delu said proudly, "Send the strongest one. I will beat him up and tell everyone present that the Strongest Sect is not something your trash sect can afford to mess with." After losing 50 games in a row in the sect, the green turban brother realized that the opportunity had come, so he had to perform well in front of Elder Jin. Maybe this battle can allow him to be promoted directly from the outer sect to the personal disciple, and then there will be more resources to supply, and he can not consider going out for training. Hehe. Jun Changxiao, you and your disciples are indeed the stepping stones for me, Delu, to become the supreme master. The strongest? Jun Changxiao thought about it. Li Xingchen said coldly, "Master, since he is looking for the strongest, I'm willing to fight and teach this arrogant green-turbaned man a lesson." This made Li Qingyang, Xiao Zuji and others twitch their mouths. "Junior brother Yi, you are stronger than us, but as for the strongest inner disciple, you go to fight without asking the senior sister. Do you still have any shame?" If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 284, Arrogant Delu. The green turbaned man was arrogant and challenged the strongest inner sect disciple of the Tigu sect directly. Yi Xingchen was very unhappy, so he asked for a fight and decided to teach this guy with a green turban a lesson. However, Jun Changxiao said, "Elder Jun, is he an inner sect disciple?" "Master Jun," Elder Jun said indifferently, "although the disciples of my sect are outer sect disciples, they already have the strength of inner sect disciples." Jun Changxiao frowned. "You agreed to send an inner sect disciple, but you sent an outer sect disciple. How can I complete the task?" Jun Changxiao. De Lu said indifferently, "You dare not send an inner sect disciple to fight me? Oh. This kid is quite arrogant." After some consideration, Jun Changxiao said, "Xingchen, go to fight. Using an inner sect disciple to fight an outer sect disciple is a bit disadvantageous, but he can't stand the green turbaned man being so arrogant. The best way to deal with such a person is to let someone more arrogant than him to deal with him." "Who is the most arrogant in the Tigu sect?" "Without a doubt, Lord GD." Swish. Yi Xingchen stepped forward, clenching his fists and shaking his head, saying grimly, "A grown man wearing a green turban. He really doesn't mind that his hair is full of green." De Lu sneered, "Green represents nature, you know nothing." "Know nothing?" Yi Xingchen stood in the center of the martial arts arena. His eyes were cold and he said, "Boy, when the fight starts, I will make you suffer. That's what I want to say." De Lu smiled evilly. The referee said, "Please tell each other your names." Yi Xingchen said lightly, "I'm a disciple of the Strongest Sect." Yi Xingchen. Not only did he report his name, but he also reported his sect. This is very rare. In fact, even he himself didn't understand why he had to report his sect. If he had to give a reason, Yi Xingchen felt that, since he came to challenge the fifth-rate sect, he should give his own head a face. De Lu, a disciple of the Shengquan sect. De Lu said. At this point, the Great Emperor Reborn and the Devourer were only a few meters apart, and a battle to see who would be the protagonist template was about to begin. De Lu completely released his martial arts aura, with a proud look on his face. After returning from Black Eagle Mountain, he had always suppressed his cultivation, even in the small sect competition, he only revealed a little. Today, with so many forces watching, it was a great opportunity to show off, so there was no need to hide it, to win the favor of the sect leaders. As expected, when De Lu released his martial arts cultivation, the faces of the Shengquan sect leaders were all surprised, especially Elder Jun. He was allowed to play because of bribes, but he didn't expect to give himself a surprise. The disciples of Shengquan sect were also stunned. It was unbelievable that a disciple who had only been in the sect for more than a year could have the cultivation of martial arts master. The outer disciples of Shengquan sect have actually broken through to the level of martial arts master. It's worthy of being a big sect. Just now, they didn't send him to the stage, so they kept him to fight later. The warriors of various forces were surprised. De Lu, who had completely released his martial arts cultivation, had people talking about him, and his face was even more proud. It turned out that being the center of attention felt so good. At this moment, the green turban brother was even more arrogant. With his qualifications, he would never attract attention in his life, let alone achieve much. After awakening the devouring power, his strength would surge, and he would naturally expand. However, when De Lu showed his martial arts master cultivation, Yi Xingchen's eyes were full of contempt. I thought this arrogant guy was so strong, but it turns out that he is only a first-grade martial arts master. This guy's really rubbish. Begin. The referee shouted. De Lu smiled grimly and said, "I." Swish. Yi Xingchen stepped on the cloud stepping step and appeared in front of De Lu at an extremely fast speed. He said in a cold voice, "Have you ever experienced the taste of living a life worse than death?" De Lu's smile froze, and his eyes were filled with fear. Boom. The sound of fists rang out, and a strong wind swept. Everyone widened their eyes. This guy named Yi Xingchen, the aura that burst out in the moment of his attack was actually a martial arts master, and judging from his level, it was more than the second or third grade. Ding. Defeat 1/10 of the inner disciples of the Holy Spring sect. A prompt sounded in his ears. Jun Changxiao was stunned and said, "How can an outer disciple be counted as an inner disciple?" The system said, because of the task judgment, the strength of this outer disciple of Strongest Sect named Delu is already equal to that of an inner disciple. I see. Jun Changxiao said, very smart. But he was defeated by Yi Xingchen with one punch. That arrogant Delu was too weak. In the martial arts arena, the airwave gradually dissipated, and Brother Green Scarf lay straight on the ground, his body twitching violently. Swish. Yi Xingchen came over, stepped on his face, and said coldly, boy, stand up and be arrogant. This scene seems familiar. Yes. At the beginning of this book, Jun Changxiao stepped on his face with his foot, persuading him to join the Tiguzhangzheng faction. In the end, he refused and was beaten again. First, he was stepped on the face by the time traveler, and now he was stepped on the face by the reborn emperor. This is really pitiful. Delu was not unconscious, his mind was still there, and his eyes were filled with horror. In his first battle, after obtaining the power of devouring, he was beaten to lose his combat effectiveness by a punch. Impossible, impossible. I have the power of devouring, and my cultivation level is improving quickly. How could he, a disciple of the Tigu faction, be so strong and defeat me? Delu hasn't figured it out yet. This is a huge gap in strength. Not to mention Yi Xingchen, even Zhang Wei and others can easily defeat him by just picking one of them. Unless, use the power of devouring. But during this period, Delu only studied how to absorb plants and fierce beasts, and could not absorb warriors at will. Later, he remembered the scene of absorbing the ghost old man before, and guessed that, if he wanted to absorb human spiritual power, it should only be stimulated at the moment of life and death. It's not dangerous enough now, not desperate enough. For this reason, Delu laughed at his face, even though he was stepped on. You only have this much strength? Huh? Yi Xingchen frowned slightly. A piece of trash that he stepped on actually dared to mock him. Swish. Yi Xingchen raised his foot and said lightly, then I'll let you see what strength is. Bang. He stepped on Delu's face, making him spit out blood. Very good. Torture me as much as you can. Put me in a desperate situation. Let me survive in a desperate situation. When the devouring power is activated, I will take all the spiritual power in your body. Bang, bang, bang. Yi Xingchen stepped on him hard again, making Delu dizzy and blood spurting out, but he just couldn't trigger the devouring power. Not miserable enough. Not close to death. Even though his whole face was covered with big footprints, Delu still tried to grin to stimulate Yi Xingchen, who was already irritable. Boy, you dare to laugh after being abused like this? You are so arrogant. Yi Xingchen continued to stomp hard, causing the corners of the mouths of the warriors watching the battle to twitch violently. Are the disciples of Strongest Sect mentally ill? They have obviously lost their fighting power, but they still use smiles to provoke their opponents and abuse themselves. They don't understand. This is Delu's strategy, to break out in desperation. Don't say it. As Yi Xingchen trampled again and again, as the injuries became more serious, a strange breath suddenly emerged from the body of Brother Green Scarf, and his eyes gradually turned green. With the ferocious face, it looks a bit scary. Here it comes. My terrifying devouring power that can absorb warriors. Bang. Yi Xingchen kicked down again, and Delu spat out a mouthful of blood. The attributes in his body were about to surge wildly, and his thinking and body was suddenly interrupted. He couldn't bear the abuse and fainted. The aura in his body, like a flood, retreated like a receding tide as the owner fainted, and finally disappeared in the blood and meridians. Everything returned to normal, as if nothing had happened. If Delu was still thinking, he would definitely cry. He had injured so much damage, and was about to fight back, but why did he faint? Bang. Yi Xingchen kicked the unconscious Delu out of the martial arts arena and said calmly, how dare you, Strongest Sect, send such trash? Are you sure you are not asking for trouble? Chapter 285 The Battle of the Inner Gate, still a crushing victory. Delu's strategy was right. When he was in a desperate situation, he could stimulate the devouring power. However, he had to survive this desperate situation first. Facing Yi Xingchen's kicks, Brother Green Scarf couldn't keep his mind stable and fainted. The devouring power that was about to burst out suddenly shrank back. So, he was abused for nothing, and he didn't fight to the death. I have to say, this is a great tragedy. Jun Changxiao shook his head and said, I thought he was very strong, but it turns out he is so vulnerable. Elder Jin was so angry that his body was shaking. Let Delu play, but he was defeated in one move and was stepped on the face repeatedly. It was really a disgrace to Shinquan Sect. There was no way. Yi Xingchen was too strong. Even if King Lin Feng was sent up, he would still lose. The only consolation was that he used outer disciples to consume the strongest disciple of Tegu Sect. Elder Jin waved his hand. An inner disciple walked onto the martial arts field with anger flashing in his eyes. It was difficult for any disciple of Shinquan Sect to tolerate so many fellow disciples being defeated, so he had to win. Jun Chang smiled and said, Yuhe, come on stage. Yes. Yang Yuhe stepped out. Yang Yuhe, a disciple of the Tiguz Hengzheng school. Qifan, a disciple of the Shinquan Sect. Begin. The referee said. Swish. Qifan took the lead and used the 36 moves of heaven-piercing fist, instantly transforming into fist shadows. He is a senior inner disciple of the Shinquan Sect and has a top-grade spiritual root. Although his strength is only that of a first-grade martial artist, his fist skills and momentum are obviously much stronger than Delu. Each punch has a force of at least 40,000 Jin. This is a true inner disciple of the Shinquan Sect. The disciples of the Tegu school are in trouble. Swish. Yang Yuhe staggered his steps and crossed his arms, obviously trying to resist with his body. Seeing this, everyone shook their heads. The 36 moves of heaven-piercing fist is the unique fist of the Shinquan Sect. Once it is used, it will form an endless momentum. Choosing to defend will definitely fall into an absolute passive position. Bang, bang, bang. Fist shadows blasted over like cannonballs. Although the power of each blow was about 40,000 Jin, Yang Yuhe, who was bearing the bombardment, stood still without moving at all. He didn't even open the seal shield. It was so easy. Everyone's eyes widened. So many bombardments, such strong power. The disciples of the Tegu school are fine. Just take a half step back. Qifan, who was beaten by a set of boxing skills, also had a look of astonishment on his face. Even a huge beast with thick skin and flesh was beaten back several steps under his bombardment. Swish. Yang Yuhe took advantage of the other party's daze and blasted over with the explosive fist. This punch was so fast that Qifan came back to his senses and could only cross his arms to defend. It's impolite not to return the favor. Yang Yuhe's fist infused with spiritual energy blasted over. Bang. Qifan endured a fierce blow. His body suddenly exploded backwards. His face was extremely hideous, and intense pain spread in his arms. Yang Yuhe, a second-grade martial artist, can punch out a force of 55,000 Jin with the help of the explosive fist. So how can a first-grade martial artist take it? Ding, ding, ding. Qifan staggered back and retreated directly to the outside of the martial arts arena. When he struggled to stabilize his body, his legs softened, and he half knelt on the ground. Ding. Defeat 2/10 of the inner disciples of Shinquan Sect. The corners of the martial artists watching the battle twitched. The inner disciples went on the field and were still knocked out with one punch. This is hard to accept. Qin Horan and the alliance boss were also stupid. How could a sect that was originally not in the mainstream have so many powerful disciples in just 1 year? Elder Jin was so angry that his lungs exploded. At his own doorstep, under the witness of various forces, 52 battles, losing 52 games, no one can control their emotions. Hey. Jun Chang smiled and said, Zuancao, go on stage. Yes. Song Zuancao walked onto the martial arts arena and stood proudly. The Holy Spring Sect sent another inner disciple, who was still a first-grade martial artist. In a fifth-rate sect, there are two ways to become an inner disciple. One is to have excellent spiritual roots, and the other is to be strong. This strength is to reach the level of martial artist. If you have good spiritual roots and a strong realm, you will be a direct disciple. Of course, disciples with good spiritual roots will gradually become stronger. For example, Mo Shangfei, an 8th grade martial artist who was defeated by Li Qingyang in Lingquan Mountain, has also entered the level of a 2nd grade martial artist in 1 year. Unfortunately, it was too slow. Li Qingyang, who was only a 4th grade martial artist at that time, now not only has a top grade spiritual root, but also has the cultivation of a 5th grade martial artist. Compared like this, the gap is really huge. The Tegu sect disciple who went to fight is a martial artist. The one from the Shenkwan sect is a martial artist. He should be able to win the first victory. Everyone whispered. It is possible to fight across levels in the same realm, but it is very difficult to win across levels in a higher realm. Mr. Song's heart was suddenly hanging. It was not long since his son recovered from paralysis. It was too dangerous to fight against a martial artist with the cultivation of martial artist. However, after the game started, Song Zhuanzhao relied on various martial arts of the sect to achieve all-round suppression in a short time. Especially when he seized the opportunity and performed the mountain opening palm. The burst of power had reached 30,000 Jun. His opponent's burst of power was only 25,000 Jun. Feeling the spiritual energy spread out by the powerful palm method, Mr. Song looked sluggish. My son. Is this so strong? Exclamation mark. Boom. Song Zhuanzhao went around to the back and used explosive fists one after another, directly blasting the Shenkwan sect disciple who was one realm higher than him out of the martial arts arena. Although not as clean and neat as his senior brothers, he was suppressing the fight from the beginning to the end. This is enough to prove that he, who was paralyzed, stood up again and practiced hard in the Tegu sect, and he was still a genius once in a century. Seeing his son defeat his opponent and looking at his iron bone back, Mr. Song couldn't help himself, and his hands trembled with excitement. Song Zhuanzhao defeated the first grade martial artist with the cultivation of a peak martial artist. Not only did he prove himself, but he also told the martial artists who were watching the excitement that the higher the realm of the Tegu sect disciples, the more ugly the look on the faces of the senior members of the Shenkwan sect was. And this is destined to continue to be ugly, because Zhang Wei and others who are stronger than Song Zhuanzhao will come on stage one after another, sweeping the inner disciples of the Shenkwan sect with a strong posture. Ding. Defeat 10/10ths inner disciples of Shenkwan sect. Ding. Disciple defeated inner disciples of Shenkwan sect. Epic mission completed 50%. Host gained 400 contribution points. Ding. Contribution value 2205/2000. Ding. Sect contribution value overflowed. The disciples performed so strongly, which made Jun Changxiao very comfortable, so he opened the purchased goods column and spent 500 contribution points to buy 10 bottles of qualification transformation liquid. After the end, it will be distributed to the disciples who have made the sect proud. It is impossible to let each disciple who went to the battle have a copy. It is impossible for the time being, but it will definitely be recorded as a merit and rewarded in the future. The outer disciples of Tegu sect have been very tough in this year's training. If they improve their spiritual roots, they will be even more terrifying. Elder Jun Changxiao said, "Are you going to continue?" Elder Jun did not speak, but waved his hand with a gloomy face. An inner disciple with the strength of a third grade martial artist came out again. This is, let's continue the battle. Jun Changxiao naturally would not be afraid of fighting, so he let Long Xiang fight. The most amazing thing is that it was the 61st battle, and only Yi Xingchen from the inner sect of Tegu sect had fought, and the others hadn't played yet. Bang! Long Xiang, the strongest outer sect disciple, defeated his opponent cleanly and won the 11th inner sect battle. The warriors from all parties look calm. In the 61st battle, Tegu sect won 61 times, and their spirits and muscles had long been numb. Chapter 286, My sword is unsheathed, you have no chance. The battle of the inner sect continued, and in the next match, Jun Changxiao sent out Leng Yuangsu. Although the girl was a little timid, when the match started, she used her explosive fist and mountain opening palm, and knocked her opponent out like a master being killed by random punches. Then she fought 2 more matches. So far, all the outer sect disciples who went to Death Valley for training, except Zhao Hong, have fought and defeated their opponents, bringing the total number of wins to 64. The corners of the mouths of all parties twitched violently. Before the challenge began, who would have thought that it was not the Tegu sect that was completely defeated, but the Shenkwan sect? It's terrible. Ma Yunteng was amazed. The disciples brought by Jun Changxiao, even if his Kangshan sect disciples came to fight, would definitely be defeated one by one. Jun Changxiao smiled and said, I said, if the Tegu sect of Sect Master Jun didn't have the strength, how could they dare to challenge the Shenquan sect? Leo was completely silent. 64 wins. Shimaohua Palace couldn't do it. Murungzin murmured, so, his sect is so strong. Humph. Senior sister said indifferently, it's a 5th-rate sect after all, but it's so weak. It's really embarrassing. She didn't understand yet. It's not that Shenquan sect is weak, but that Tegu sect is too strong. Next, there is actually no need to fight again, because Shenquan sect, which lost 64 games in a row, not only lost the face of a 5th-rate sect, but also lost all its underwear. However, Elder Jin sent a disciple to fight again. This inner disciple looked almost 30 years old, and his strength was at the level of a 4th-grade martial artist. During this period, Shenquan sect did not send a 4th-grade martial artist to fight, but still lost to the 2nd-grade martial artist disciple of Tegu sect. Facing a group of perverts with various resources piled up, it is difficult to win without absolute level suppression. Jun Changxiao originally planned to let Shanqi fight. Ma Yangning took the initiative to ask, Master, please let me play. Yahui and Ahui both appeared, coaxing Liu Wanshi very happy. He couldn't bear the idea of fighting. Jun Chang smiled and said, okay. Swish. Ma Yangning stepped into the martial arts arena. He held the severed and reattached sword all the time and said proudly, let's fight with weapons. The disciples of Shenquan sect who were going to fight looked at Elder Jin, and after receiving his instructions, they sacrificed their 3-foot-long swords. Langjing, a disciple of Shenquan sect. Ma Yangning, a disciple of Heng sect. After introducing themselves, the warriors of various sects were a little speechless. The two were so old, especially Ma Yangning of Tegu sect, who looked like he was almost 40 or 50 years old, and he was still just a disciple. How bad was he? I'm only 29. Who the hell is 40 or 50 years old? Ma Yangning said, the game starts, you make the first move, because if my sword is unsheathed, you have no chance. Langjing. This middle-aged man is so arrogant. Start. The referee shouted. Clang. Langjing unsheathed his long sword and rushed over. During the process, his wrist shook, and in an instant, a complex sword flower was intertwined. Wave sword technique. This is a top-grade sword technique. Everyone exclaimed. Facing the sword flower, that was like the surging waves of the sea, Ma Yangning smiled faintly, put down the knife, and put his right hand on the hilt. Whoosh. In an instant, a stream of heavy sword intent permeated his body, exuding a desolate atmosphere that seemed to come from the northern desert. This sword intent, a strong man said in surprise, he is a sword cultivator. What? Everyone widened their eyes. Sword cultivators and sword cultivators are very rare in the Starfall continent. Clang. At this moment, Ma Yangning took a step forward, and the sword with obvious signs of repair was unsheathed, and the desolate atmosphere instantly erupted, like a sandstorm. North Desert Sword. Whoosh. The sword energy whistled out, crushing the attacking wave sword flower with a force that was as old as time. Not good. Langjing's eyes were filled with horror, and he hurriedly retreated to the outside of the field. Bang. The heavy sword energy slashed on the stone slab, leaving a sword mark more than 5 meters long. Langjing, who escaped to the outside of the arena, broke out in a cold sweat. Ma Yangning's sword was not intended to hurt anyone, otherwise, he would not have escaped, but would have been chopped apart long ago. The Iron Bone Sect won another game. At this time, the various forces were not concerned about the 65 victories, but that the seemingly old disciple of the Iron Bone Sect was actually a sword cultivator. Jun Changxiao was also a little stunned. I have fought with Ma Yangning before, but he was not so strong at that time. Wow. Liu Wanshi said excitedly, so powerful. Hearing what the little girl said, Ma Yangning slowly retracted his sword, and his face showed the pride that a swordsman should have. Ding. The disciple defeated the inner disciples of Shenquan sect 15/15, met the hidden standard, and the epic task completion rate was 60%. The host obtained 200 contribution points. Ding. Sect contribution value 1905/2000. It seems that to meet the hidden standard, you have to defeat a few more people on top of the original number of defeats. Jun Changxiao bowed and said, Elder Jun, I'm sorry, I won another game by luck. Everyone collapsed. Master Jun, your Tegu sect won 65 games by luck, and you almost made Shenquan sect cry. Elder. King Linfeng couldn't help it and said, disciple invites me to fight. Elder Jin suppressed his endless anger and said with high hopes, Linfeng, you must win. Yes. King Linfeng walked onto the martial arts arena and stopped in the central area, his expression extremely solemn. He couldn't accept that his junior brother had lost all 65 battles, so he had to win this battle no matter what. The disciple of Shenquan sect has gone to fight. We should have sent him to the field earlier to boost the morale of the disciples who will come out later. From the aura, Master Linfeng is at least a 6th grade extreme martial artist. TSK, an extreme martial artist of this level must have at least 80,000 kilograms of strength. When King Linfeng appeared on the stage, all forces finally realized that Shenquan sect had to take it seriously. If Elder Jin knew what they were thinking, he would definitely vomit blood, because in the battle of inner disciples, Shenquan sect had already taken it seriously, but it couldn't win at all. HMPH. Alliance leader Qin said coldly, young Master Linfeng has a top grade spiritual root, and is also a top class martial artist. Not to mention that he is a disciple of the Tegu sect. Even if Jun Changxiao goes to fight, he will be severely abused. Finally, there is a good show to watch. The leader of the Changdao sect and the bigwigs of the alliance laughed. 65 fights. The Tegu sect won 65 games, which made them feel very disappointed. Now that King Linfeng is fighting, exuding a strong aura, they are immediately in high spirits. But, even if they really win one game, it will be in vain. This man is not weak. Jun Changxiao held his chin and said after some thought, Zuji, you go meet him. Yes. Xiao Zuji walked over. After standing in the center of the martial arts arena, he said, the Tegu sect, Xiao Zuji. Xiao Zuji. The warriors from all sides were stunned and looked at Mirangxin, who was watching the battle in the distance. Junior sister. The senior sister was also surprised and asked, could this Xiao Zuji be your former fiancé? Mirangxin said nothing, her bright eyes always looking at the man standing proudly on the martial arts field, thinking to herself, your fellow disciple is very strong. How about you? Chapter 287 Xiao Zuji vs King Linfeng. Could this young man be Xiao Zuji, who was divorced by the proud daughter of the Mirang family? That's him. I heard that he represented the Tegu sect last year and won the championship in the Qingyang County sect competition. Hasn't he become a waste? Mirangxin came to Shenquan sect. Could it be that she wanted to see her divorced fiancé? She is now a direct disciple of the second-rate Lily Saints sect, but Xiao Zuji is in the 7th-rate Tegu sect. The two are destined to be from different worlds. Being divorced by a woman is really embarrassing. Although the warriors of various forces were whispering, every word was clearly heard by Xiao Zuji, making him clench his fists. Mirangxin frowned. Why are these people so talkative? Xiao Zuji turned his head, with a faint indifference in his eyes, as if telling her, did you hear it? This is the harm you brought to me back then. Yes. You can use your youth and ignorance to shirk the responsibility of returning it back then. But as a man, how can I make up for the trampling of my dignity? Mirangxin didn't dare to look Xiao Zuji in the eye, because looking at those indifferent eyes would only make her feel more guilty. Xiao Zuji exhaled. Just as the head of the sect once said, if you lose something, you must take it back with your own hands. What was lost was the dignity of man. How to take it? 2 years later, he ascended to the Holy Lily sect, stood in front of those high and mighty people, took out a divorce letter, and divorced this woman who brought him endless humiliation. Not convinced? Then let's fight. I'm a disciple of the Holy Spring sect, King Linfeng. King Linfeng reported his name, and then said, I sympathize with you. This is true sympathy, not ridicule. In a world dominated by men, being broken off by a woman must be very fatal to the dignity. Xiao Zuji raised a smile and said, in fact, I'm very grateful to that woman. If it weren't for her breaking off the engagement, I, Xiao Zuji, wouldn't be where I'm today. He paused here. Swish. He clenched his fists and said with great pride, I wouldn't have become a disciple of the Tiguz Hengsheng sect. The faces of his fellow disciples behind him also showed pride. They were very fortunate to be disciples of the Strongest Sect, to be able to stand here and challenge the insurmountable mountains. Jun Changxiao's efforts were not in vain. The disciples had a strong sense of belonging to the Strongest Sect. "Begin," said the referee. Swish. King Linfeng made a seal with both hands, and the spiritual energy whistled out, instantly condensing into a large palm, sweeping over with a strong force. The soul gathering seal. Only the top leaders and direct disciples in the Strongest Sect can learn the top grade high level martial arts. Whoosh, the palm seal whistled from top to bottom, and the power it carried rose rapidly, directly breaking through to 100,000 Jin. So strong. Everyone exclaimed. With the blessing of martial arts, the burst was comparable to the power of the ordinary first-class martial sect. This is the direct disciple of the Strongest Sect. The senior sister standing next to Mirangzhen said lightly, "King Linfeng is pretty good. How can that guy compete with him?" Her tone seemed to praise a disciple of a fifth-rate sect, and he should feel honored. There is no way. Disciples of second-rate sects are naturally arrogant. When Mirangzhen brought the people of the Holy Lily sect to break off the engagement, she showed an even stronger arrogance in front of the Xiao family and Xiao Ziji. Tread. When the palm print was about to come down, Xiao Ziji took a step forward, bowed slightly, and the spiritual energy in the cyclone surged wildly and condensed in his right fist. Bang! The explosive fist was performed, facing the front. Boom. The moment the fist and the wide palm print came into contact, a strong air wave whistled out and immediately swept away the surrounding dust. Thump thump thump. Xiao Ziji and King Linfeng retreated backwards respectively until they retreated 5 steps away, and then they stabilized their bodies at the same time. The warriors from all sides widened their eyes. The disciples of the Tigu school and the disciples of the Strongest Sect were fighting each other, but they were not at a disadvantage. Wang Donglin said solemnly, "Although that boy has only the cultivation of a 5th grade martial artist, he is also an extremely high level martial artist." The leaders of various forces also saw from the initial fight that Xiao Ziji was also an extremely high level martial artist, and their mouths twitched violently. To reach the extremely high level, the most basic element is to have extremely high level spiritual roots. How could the Tigu sect have such a sturdy disciple? Mirangzhen's bright eyes were filled with surprise, and she said, "Has his extremely high level spiritual roots recovered?" "You." King Linfeng said with a serious look, "Very strong." Swish. Xiao Ziji rushed over with a cloud step. His left and right arms respectively performed the explosive fist and the mountain opening palm, and the strong breath burst out, forming waves of wind. Boom. Boom. In an instant, the two top martial artists exchanged dozens of moves, each of which was 100,000 pounds of strength, and the fight was magnificent. This is definitely the most exciting battle since the challenge began, because the front was basically all one-sided crushing by the disciples of the Iron Bone School, and there was no such thing as equal strength. The warriors of various forces were stunned. They thought that the disciples sent by the Holy Spring sect would definitely be able to completely defeat the Iron Bone School, but they didn't expect that the disciples sent were not weaker than King Linfeng. Today, the strong performance of the disciples of the Iron Bone School completely refreshed their cognition and slapped them countless times. Bang. Boom. Xiao Zuji's moves were open and closed, and the explosive fist and the mountain opening palm were frequently performed. Although he is one level lower than King Linfeng in realm, his power is not inferior to the other party every time he bursts out. This comes from martial arts. Although the explosive fist and the mountain splitting palm are not as good as the upper grade high level martial arts and level, as long as they are comprehended to the extreme, they can provide powerful combat power. Boom. Boom. The two sides fought for more than 10 moves. King Linfeng retreated more than 10 steps. There was a subtle change on his face, and his arms that bore the power also felt numb. Xiao Ziji stood there with a calm face. The two were equally strong, but in terms of physical strength, King Linfeng was far behind. Swish. The cloud strong step was performed. Xiao Ziji launched a new round of bombardment again, and the power he burst out was still as strong as ever. This guy seems to be attacking desperately from the beginning. Can his body bear it? As long as King Linfeng stabilizes the situation, he will definitely exhaust him. Although he can fight against Master Lin Feng on equal terms, he only knows how to explode. At first glance, he is a reckless man who has never experienced actual combat. Hearing what everyone said, Jun Changxiao smiled. A bunch of idiots. My disciple plays like this because he is strong and willful. You just need to watch carefully. You are not qualified to comment here. Xiaozuji is not a little bit strong. With the continuous violent bombardment, not only did he not feel tired at all, but he became more and more courageous. King Lin Feng naturally knew that, if he kept dragging it out, and exhausted his spiritual energy, he would have the possibility of winning. But the premise is, he must be able to hold on until he is exhausted. For now, Xiaozuji is getting more and more courageous, and has gradually made King Lin Feng fall behind. Holding on for more than 10 minutes is the limit. No, we must find an opportunity to defeat the enemy with one blow. Swish. King Lin Feng seized the opportunity when Xiaozuji attacked, retreated explosively with his body skills, then flew into the air, quickly made a seal, and shouted, "Great Spirit Gathering Seal." Whoosh. Violent spiritual energy burst out from his body and instantly condensed into a heavy palm print that was 5 or 6 meters wide and long, and then ruthlessly suppressed Xiaozuji. Chapter 288 Double Seal. Catch it. The Great Gathering Spirit Seal. This is one of the few top-grade martial arts of the Strongest Sect. A disciple can actually perform it. When King Lin Feng condensed a heavy palm seal, warriors from all forces exclaimed. Elder Jun's brows relaxed, and a rare smile finally appeared on his face. The direct disciple performed the most powerful moves, and the fight ended. Our Strongest Sect finally won the first victory. Although it came late, at least we can still save face among the top disciples. Whoosh, the Great Gathering Spirit Seal pressed down with a heavy force, and the power was more than 150,000 in a few cases. The wind blew the clothes and hair of the warriors watching the battle. They all held their breath in shock. Under the intensive offensive, they were able to get rid of it and perform a strong palm seal. The direct disciple of the Strongest Sect is really strong. Wang Donglin said solemnly, the power carried by this boy in performing the Great Gathering Spirit Seal is enough to be comparable to the 5th grade general martial arts sect. It's dangerous. Ma Yunteng said. When King Lin Feng condensed a powerful palm print, the warriors from all forces, who were watching the excitement all believed that Xiaozuji was going to be unlucky. Perhaps this battle would also end. But Jun Changxiao didn't think so, and he was not worried about his disciples at all. Step. Xiaozuji stepped on the ground with one foot, and his muscles instantly strengthened, and then he greeted with both palms, showing a sky-lifting posture. This is too hard on. Arrogant. Such a strong palm print, how can the flesh resist? Aren't you afraid of being suppressed and shattered to pieces? The strong men from all forces shook their heads. If he was stronger than King Lin Feng, it would be no problem to take it hard with the flesh, but if he was one level lower, taking a palm print of 150,000 Jin would undoubtedly be humiliating himself. Too messy. Miranzin frowned. Even if Xiaozuji could take on the Great Gathering Spirit Seal, he would inevitably be injured. How should he fight the enemy next? The wisest choice is to dodge and continue to consume with the opponent. Only in this way can there be a possibility of victory. The two sides are equally matched in strength, and it is the right choice to fight to consume. It is absolutely reckless to take the opponent's trump card. The senior sister said lightly, with this way of fighting, he will die miserably sooner or later. No wonder the junior sister broke off the engagement with him. Whoosh, the Great Gathering Spirit Seal came down with a bang, and the martial arts field became dark. Xiaozuji stood below with his palms raised, and suddenly gave people a very small feeling. Come on, come on. His eyes became sharp, and his muscles swelled again, and each muscle seemed to have been tempered by thousands of hammers. Unfortunately, wearing school uniforms, the warriors of various forces could not see it, and even if they saw it, they would not care, because their energy was all on the pressing palm print. Boom. The heavy Great Gathering Spirit Seal pressed down fiercely, and the moment it came into contact with Xiaozuji's palm, it immediately rolled up a stronger wind and waves. The warriors who were closer stepped back several steps, with horror on their faces. Crack, crack, crack. Many stone slabs on the martial arts field were shattered. The corners of everyone's mouth twitched. The The spiritual energy wave that formed alone shattered the stone slab. The power of the martial artist was really terrifying. However, the strong men from all forces stabilized their bodies, resisted the raging wind, looked up at the battle area, and their expressions were all frozen. Zyuji had already held a great gathering spirit seal with both hands. Although the stone slabs under his feet were broken into pieces, his body was straight. He actually took it. How is it possible? The senior sister's eyes were filled with disbelief, and even Mirangza next to her was very surprised. She thought Zyuji could take it, but she didn't think it would be so easy. The strong men from all forces were also stunned. That was a palm print with a force of 150,000 kilograms. He didn't even bend his body when he took it. How strong must his flesh be? Everyone was shocked, and Jun Changxiao and the disciples of the Tegu school were smiling. King Linfeng's strength was good, but Zyuji was tempered by gravity in the training tower all day. Want to suppress him? Impossible. Swish. King Linfeng fell to the ground, maintaining the strength of the palm print to press down, and was shocked. The power of his palm was enough to be comparable to that of a 5th grade general martial artist. It was incredible that the opponent was so calm in the next move. Swish. He flew into the air again, cast a seal, and condensed a second large spirit gathering seal to press down. Second palm. This is too awesome. Everyone exclaimed. Such a powerful trump card martial arts. The disciple of the Shenquan sect could condense it again, which immediately shocked the martial artists of all forces. It's over. Elder Jin thought with great certainty. He didn't believe that a 5th grade martial artist could withstand the double large spirit gathering seals with a total power of 300,000 kilograms. Mirangzin frowned and said, "It's not too late to retreat now." Ah. Zyuji shouted angrily, and his school uniform suddenly broke, revealing his strong muscles. Don't ask why his pants didn't break, because that's very indecent. Boom. The second great gathering spirit seal pressed hard on the first palm, and the 150,000 Jin force merged with the former, forming a force like a mountain pressing down on one's head. Crack, crack, crack. The spiritual energy and strength mixed together to produce a pressure force, which shattered all the stone slabs in the martial arts field and rolled up stone foam and dust. The crowd couldn't see the situation in the battle area clearly, but they all believed that the two palms had been blasted down, and the disciples of the Tegu sect must have been suppressed. The strong men from all forces, however, looked solemn. When the palm print pressed down, they clearly saw Zyuji's strong muscles showing, giving people a feeling of a copper wall and iron wall. Maybe there will be more. Sure enough, when the dust dissipated, when everything was clearly visible, Zyuji still held up his unyielding backbone, holding up the stacked great gathering spirit seals with both hands. The whole audience was silent. Elder Jin and many warriors were stunned. At this moment, Zyuji's arms sank, and his waist bent down. He can't hold it anymore. He's going to be suppressed. The leader of the Changdao sect laughed. Qin Horan and others also smiled. Although Zyuji's performance shocked them, he was still suppressed in front of King Linfeng, and still lost. Elder Jin also laughed. However, the smile just rose, and it froze. After Zyuji's waist was bent to a certain extent, veins burst out on his muscles, and he stood up with an angry roar. Swish. In an instant, his body stood up again, and with the burst of power, he directly pushed out the big spirit gathering seal on his hands. Everyone's eyes almost popped out. It turned out that the guy bent down, not because he couldn't hold on, but to make a buffer, to push out the two big palm prints. The faces of Qin Horan and others were almost smashed by the invisible force. After all, seeing Zyuji's failure, he immediately laughed at him, which was really funny. Swish. When the palm print was pushed out, King Linfeng's face was pale and just fell down. Although he performed two moves of the Great Gathering Spirit Seal in succession, it was very impressive, but it also consumed a lot of physical and spiritual energy. Good opportunity. Jun Chang smiled. Chapter 289. Ready to fight for your sect. Young Master Linfeng is very tired. The Great Gathering Spirit Seal is a top grade martial art. It consumes a lot of spiritual energy when used by a martial arts master, not to mention a martial arts master. Now I just hope that the disciples of the Tigu school are exhausted. While everyone was discussing, Zyrozuji rushed over with the Zangan step and used the explosive fist and the open mountain palm left and right to launch an airtight attack. Are you tired? Sorry, I just got into the state. Boom. 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 Due to the serious energy consumption, although King Linfeng could barely defend, he was already at an absolute disadvantage from the situation. Seeing this, the corners of everyone's mouth twitched. Are the disciples of the Tigu school human? They endured 2 palm print bombardments and fought so energetically. Elder Jun howled in his heart. Hold on, you must hold on. Back then in the Heoki sect, Alliance leader Qin witnessed his disciples' defeats one after another, and he also had this kind of collapse cry from the heart. What is the result? Those who should be abused will still be abused, and those who should lose will still lose, which will not affect the battle situation at all. Bang. Bang, bang. Zyrozuji's punches were faster, and his strength was as strong as ever. The fusion of muscle and spiritual energy made him fight more and more smoothly, and his blood boiled more and more. He felt the punches, but King Linfeng couldn't catch them at all, so he could only use his body to meet the violent fists. Bang. In the end, he flew out like a cannonball. In the process, the 2 large spirit gathering seals pushed up into the sky gradually disappeared as they lost contact with their masters. Bang. King Linfeng hit the stone wall in front of the hall hard, and his whole body sank into it. Wow. Blood splattered. He tried to raise his head and said weakly, you are really strong. After that, he also fainted. The scarred body fell from the groove and fell to the ground with a plop. Zyrozuji steadied himself, retracted his offensive, and clasped his fists towards the unconscious King Linfeng and said, thank you. He turned around and left the martial arts arena. During this time, he didn't look at Mirangzin, as if he didn't exist. In this battle for the Iron Bone Sect, Zyrozuji would never win over the direct disciple of Strongest Sect and show off to that woman. 2 years later, Lily Holy Sect. When you show off in front of you and your fellow disciples. After the battle, Jun Changxiao heard a prompt in his ear. Ding. Defeat 1/3 of the direct disciples of Strongest Sect. Comfortable. He was comfortable, and Elder Jin was about to cry. I, the direct disciple of Strongest Sect, broke out all my trump cards. Not only did I not win the fight, but I was also knocked unconscious. It's too bullying. At the level of martial artists, King Linfeng is really strong. It's a pity that he met Zyrozuji. Although this guy has only experienced more than a year of training, he is enough to be called a monster in terms of physical tempering. Use the Great Gathering Spirit Seal to hurt him, unless the level is higher and the comprehension is stronger. Of course, if the opponent is Yi Xingchen, King Linfeng would have been defeated early, because the former's comprehensive strength is more comprehensive than Zyrozuji. The warriors of various forces opened their mouths and looked at Zyrozuji, who retreated as if they were looking at a monster. He was able to resist 2 great spirit gathering seals and was able to push them out and launch a cold attack. In the end, he ended up in a calm manner. How strong must his body be to do this? Terrible. Ma Yunteng said in shock. Ask yourself, if you were to fight a genius disciple like King Linfeng, even if you could win, you would definitely pay a huge price. Zyrozuji's battle not only won honor for the Tigos Hengzheng faction, but also proved that he was no longer the waste he was 5 years ago. I believe that when the news spread to Qingyang County and the Zyro family, they would definitely feel bad, and the ridicule from the outside world would be even stronger. Don't worry about the Zyro family first. Let's talk about Alliance leader Qin and the big guys of the Alliance. When King Linfeng was defeated, they were all speechless, and their expressions were as ugly as if they had eaten shit. The inner and outer disciples of Strongest Sect were defeated one after another, and they had been slapped countless times. Now Zyrozuji defeated his personal disciple, and a slap in the face almost drew his soul to the sky. Are you laughing? You guys are laughing. The most shocked person was Mirangzin. Use a strong body to resist King Linfeng's trump card martial arts, and then win it fair and square. This year, what kind of terrible training did he go through to become so strong? Looking at the back of the retreating figure, Mirangzin remembered all kinds of terrible training places. This man was gritting his teeth to support the training. Zyna Ziozuji of the Zio family has good qualifications and is very hardworking in training. Don't blame grandpa for making a marriage contract for you without authorization. When I was young, the words of Grandpa Mirang rang in my ears. At that time, Mirangzin replied, "Grandpa, Zyna has never seen what that person looks like. How can you make a marriage contract casually?" Haha. Grandpa Mirang laughed and said, "Grandpa has already investigated that kid. This boy has great potential. He will become a dragon among men in the future and worthy of you, the darling of heaven. Humph. Just don't be a worm among humans." At that time, Mirangzin obeyed her grandfather who loved her very much. After growing up, she longed for freedom and still broke off the engagement. Today, Ziozuji defeated King Linfeng, which made her realize that what her grandfather said was right. He really has potential. Humph. The senior sister said lightly, "The direct disciple of Strongest Sect is really weak. He can't even deal with the disciple of a 7th rate sect. Can senior sister defeat him?" Mirangzin's words made the senior sister silent, because although she was also a 6th grade martial artist, she was only at a higher level. The extremely high level King Linfeng was defeated, and it must be very difficult for her to fight Ziozuji. The senior sister said, "I can't win, but junior sister can." She was only an inner disciple of Lily Saint's sect, and Mirangzin was a direct disciple of the 11th elder, much better than herself. Elder Jun Changxiao said, "Does your sect have any direct disciples?" Humph. Elder Jun snorted coldly and said, "My Strongest Sect has more direct disciples than your Tegu sect's inner disciples. You can lose the field, but you can't lose the momentum. Then let's fight again." Jun Changxiao waved his hand, and Shanqi walked out. Although his cultivation was the lowest among the inner sect, his eyes were full of pride. Without the Tegu sect, I was just a medicinal material in the eyes of others. Now I stand in the Strongest Sect and fight against their direct disciples. I'm happy and proud. Elder Jin sent out the second direct disciple. The man's name is Ran Hui. Although his qualifications are only top grade, his strength is that of a 7th grade martial artist. It is not easy to find top grade spiritual roots. So many direct disciples of many sects are mostly high grade spiritual roots with high cultivation. Shanqi. Jun Changxiao said in a voice transmission, "The opponent is a bit strong. Play well, and don't let the seat and my fellow disciples down." "Yes." Shanqi responded with a voice transmission technique. The two introduced themselves, and the referee immediately announced, "Begin." Bang. As soon as the voice fell, the burly Ran Hui punched him hard. Bang, bang, bang. Shanqi crossed his arms and resisted, and his body retreated more than 10 steps. He instantly judged that the opponent's strength was at least 80,000 Jin. With only 60,000 Jin of strength, he wanted to beat him and continue the victory for the Tegu sect. It would definitely be a fierce battle. Shanqi stepped on the Zangan step, performed the explosive fist, and rushed forward angrily. "Master, the disciples are ready to fight for the sect at any time." Chapter 290 Turn defeat into victory. Boom. A loud noise was heard in the martial arts arena. Shanqi, who was weaker than Ran Hui, was knocked out again. He struggled to stay on the edge of the arena, and his ferocious face showed a smile. Everyone was stunned. Since the beginning of the duel, the two have exchanged dozens of moves. The Tegu school disciple, a 4th grade martial artist, was at a disadvantage and was bombarded many times, but he never fell. How did he temper this body? As a high-level martial artist, Shanqi was 3 levels behind Ran Hui in realm. Even with the blessing of martial arts, it was difficult to suppress him. But don't forget, he has also been tempering in the training tower. Although he is not as evil as Ziozuji and others, his physical body is not weak. Ran Hui can attack him, but it will take more than a short time to hurt him. As long as the disciples who have been tempered on the first floor of the training tower have one biggest advantage, that is, they are very durable. I'll see how long you can hold on. Ran Hui rushed over again, and his fist condensed with spiritual energy hit him fiercely. Shanqi couldn't dodge, so he could only adjust his position slightly, take the attack with both arms, and retreat to the other side to avoid being knocked out of the field. Swish, swish, boom, boom, boom. Ran Hui caught up and blasted like a storm. Dense fist shadows flashed in the martial arts field, and waves of air came one after another. The top leaders of Strongest Sect regained a little comfort. Since the beginning of the war, this is the first time that a disciple has suppressed the disciples of Strongest Sect. Although the opponent is struggling, it is only a matter of time before they lose. Indeed, it is a matter of time. But the key is how long this time will be. Boom. 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 Ran Hui is still bombarding frantically, and Qianqi can only passively defend and retreat again and again. It's a bit troublesome. Ma Yunteng said. Wang Donglin said, after all, Strongest Sect is a sect with a lot of heritage, and the disciples are very strong. It is reasonable that the disciples of Strongest Sect can't stand it and lose. Winning more than 60 games, losing one game is not a big deal. Wrong. Qianqi, who was on the defensive, didn't want to lose. He wanted to continue the victory for the Strongest Sect in front of the sect master and his fellow disciples. Boom. Ran Hui finished another set of 36 moves of Tongshan Fist and beat Qianqi to the edge of the martial arts arena, and then took advantage of the victory to chase him. Swish. Qianqi stabilized his body, performed the cloud step, avoided the opponent's moves, and left the danger zone. Damn it. Ran Hui turned around and chased him, launching another sky-high bombardment, and the anger in his eyes became more and more intense. His strength was obviously stronger than his, and he fought more than 100 times, not to mention knocking him down. He couldn't even get off the stage. This was really infuriating. Boom. Qianqi endured another violent bombardment. Although he could still stand on the martial arts arena, he could no longer suppress the blood spurting out. No. If the disciples of the Strongest Sect are not defeated, I will eat shit directly. From the beginning, he was passive and had no power to fight back. The warriors of various forces discussed. In fact, this scene was what they wanted to see. In the end, more than 60 games were all played by the Strongest Sect suppressing the Strongest Sect. Alliance Master Qin, the disciples of the Strongest Sect should lose, right? The leader of the Changdao sect said cautiously. The disciples of the Strongest Sect were defeated one after another, so he dared not gloat easily, lest he get slapped hard in the face again. Qin Horan said lightly, they were beaten so hard that they had no power to fight back. If they can win, then the sun will rise from the west. Shen Tong and the alliance boss laughed without caring. The Strongest Sect has lost so many games, and it doesn't matter, even if they really win one game. But they can find laughter and happiness in it. They are really a bunch of hopeless idiots. Boom. Boom. Ran Hui and Qianqi have been fighting for more than 10 minutes, and the scene is still one attacking, and the other defending, without any change. But, the warriors watching the battle were speechless. The disciples of the Strongest Sect were beaten for so long, but they could still stand firm. They are really resistant to beatings. However, defense also consumes spiritual energy. If they continue to fight, they will definitely lose, and they will even lose miserably. However, they overlooked a problem. Defense certainly consumes spiritual energy, but attacking also consumes spiritual energy, even more than that. Ran Hui burst out again and again, and the power condensed in his fist has obviously decreased a lot. It's almost consumed. Qianqi should also counterattack appropriately. Jun Changxiao murmured. Sure enough. After Qianqi felt the opponent's power decline, he sometimes accepted and sometimes counterattacked with the Zhangyan step to test, until he was sure that the opponent's spiritual energy had been consumed a lot. He no longer retreated to defend, but launched a real counterattack. Hoo-hoo. The explosive fist was in the left fist, and the mountain opening palm was in the right fist. Relying on the speed of the Zhangyan step, he launched a crazy attack. Boom. 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 Everyone was dumbfounded. The Iron Bone school disciple was beaten for so long, and he still had the strength to launch a massive counterattack. Ran Hui, who was used to the advantage, was caught off guard by Qianqi's sudden counterattack, and could only keep retreating. Qianqi seized the opportunity, and a vast spiritual energy still in the cyclone burst out, turning from passive to active, and began to launch a fierce attack. Ran Hui, who consumed a lot of energy in the burst, could not bear it, and could only switch to defense. But, is his body as durable as Qianqi's? The answer is, no. So, after a huge consumption, he was beaten back in an instant, after bearing the force of punches. He was originally suppressing others to fight, but in the end he was suppressed by others, and the fighting style suddenly changed. I can't lose, I want to win. This was the only thought in Shanqi's sea of consciousness, driving him to condense spiritual energy and bombard continuously. At that moment, he seemed to be crazy. When the spiritual energy in his body was completely consumed, and when the flesh came from severe pain, Shanqi stopped and gasped. As for Nhui, he had been beaten to death on the ground, and there were dense red fist marks on his exposed skin. Senior brother Shan won. Liu won, she shouted. The disciples of the Tegu school also cheered happily. They were here to cheer, but the senior brother won too easily in the previous dozens of games, so they only cheered 2 or 3 times and gradually calmed down. This time was different. The senior brother had a difficult comeback, and had to be cheered to celebrate. Hearing his fellow disciples cheering and celebrating for him, Shanqi smiled, then endured the pain, and dragged his weak body off the field. Just walk the same way you walked up. It was only a distance of a few dozen meters, but Shanqi seemed to have walked for a long time, until he stopped in front of Jun Changxiao and said, "Master, I have fulfilled my mission." Before he finished speaking, a strong sense of pain and weakness suddenly surged into his heart, making it difficult for him to support himself, and his body fell straight down. Junior brother Suzuomo rushed over first. Shanqi was too tired, so tired that he couldn't even open his eyelids. Before he fainted, he still had a smile on his face, and said weakly, I won. You won. Jun Changxiao said seriously. Everyone saw it. Although Shanqi fainted, after defeating Nhui, who was 3 ranks higher than him, and also a high-level martial artist, he explained to the world what a strong and unyielding person is. The Iron Bone School. This name may sound bad, and may be difficult to pronounce. But under Shanqi's proof, it represents a spirit of never giving up, and never admitting defeat. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 291, Gu Chaojiu's Extraordinary Sword. Shanqi defeated Nhui with difficulty, not only defending the sect's winning streak, but also proving that, although he was at the bottom of the inner sect, he also had the strength to fight against the disciples of Strongest Sect. However, the price was that he fell into a coma. The main reason was that he was suppressed too badly in the early stage, and the counterattack in the later stage fell into a crazy outbreak for victory. If Shanqi also had a top-grade spiritual root, even if his cultivation was weaker than Nhui, he would definitely not win so hard. The victory of the senior brother made the disciples of the Tegu sect even more proud. Shanqi's reversal also silenced all forces. A 4th-grade martial artist can defeat a 7th-grade martial artist. This is definitely not a fluke. This is definitely a manifestation of strength. The Tegu sect is really strong. At this time, no one questioned this 7th-rate sect anymore, because stepping on the disciples of Strongest Sect one by one was enough to prove themselves. What they thought before was, can the Tegu sect win a game? Now it's the other way around. Can Strongest Sect win a game? As for Kinhoran and the Alliance, don't mention these idiots, because it will only spoil the fun. Sect Master Jun looked at a warrior and said calmly, my disciple won the duel. Please go to the toilet now. What to do in the toilet? Eat shit. This is the same as chopping dicks and eating keyboards on live broadcast. Jun Changxiao naturally would not really let him go, but looked at Elder Jin and said with a bow, your Strongest Sect lost again. Do you want to fight? Fight. Elder Jin said angrily. He could no longer maintain the demeanor that a high-ranking official of a 5th-rate sect should have. The muscles on his face were almost deformed with anger. Li Fei, Jun Changxiao said, let's fight. Yes. Li Fei tiptoed and walked towards the martial arts arena. But he also looked back at Shanqi who had fainted, and thought to himself, Brother Shan, Li Fei, will continue to defend the sect's winning streak. Strongest Sect sent another disciple of a 7th-grade martial artist. As for his name, I won't mention it, because after the duel started, he was fooled around by Li Fei, who was running at full speed. What a fast speed. The disciple of Shenquan sect can't catch up at all. Looks like the situation is not good. Everyone is now worried about the disciple of Shenquan sect. This is a change of mentality, and this is proof that they agree that the Iron Bone school is very strong. Boom. Boom. After turning for a while, Li Fei suddenly appeared behind the opponent. His golden right foot carried spiritual power and kicked twice, both of which were at the neck. Thump, thump, thump. The disciple staggered to the side. During this process, Li Fei appeared in front of him again, pointed his toes, flew into the air and rushed over, shouting, Iron Bone shadowless kick. Bang, 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 puff. After a torrential rain of pear blossoms, the disciple retreated to the edge of the martial arts field. Blood spurted out, and then he fell straight down with his eyelids rolled up. Puff. The body fell to the ground and left the martial arts field. The corners of everyone's mouth twitched. The disciple of Shenquan sect didn't make any moves and didn't even touch the corner of Tegu sect's clothes, but was defeated so cleanly. Ding. Defeat the disciple of Shenquan sect. The epic task completion rate is 90%, and the host gets 600 contribution points. Ding. Contribution value 2505/2000 points. Ding. Before the overflow was reminded, Jun Changxiao opened the purchased mall and spent 1000 contribution points to buy 20 bottles of qualification transformation liquid. He already has 30 bottles in stock, and he will definitely give them to the disciples, who will fight after the challenge is over. There is still 10% left, and I should continue to challenge the disciples. Jun Changxiao bowed and said, Elder Jun, are you still fighting? Fight. Elder Jun gritted his teeth. Now he is like a gambler who lost all his property in the casino, and has completely lost his rationality. Jun Changxiao said, I still have 4 disciples who haven't fought yet. How about fighting 4 more games? Okay. Elder Jun said. As he waved his hand, a tall and strong disciple stepped out with a heavy body. Although he was also a 7th grade martial artist, he was stronger than the first 2 at a glance. Xiaomo, come on stage. Yes. Xiaomo handed the unconscious Shinki to Xiao Zuji, shook his arm, and walked on tiptoe. Introduce your name, and the fight begins. Boom. Boom. Xiaomo stepped on the Zangan step, circled back and forth around the tall disciple of Shenquan sect, and then kept bombarding the vital points. As expected. Although the big guy had thick skin and flesh, after being kicked wildly, he fell to the ground like a small hill. Xiaomo clapped his hands, raised his eyebrows and said, it's not difficult. Everyone was almost fainted. These disciples of Tegu sect are simply too scary. It's like playing to abuse the disciples of Shenquan sect. Next game. Li Qingyang will fight. As a well-rounded person, he can easily win even against King Linfeng, so it only took a few minutes to defeat his opponent. Ding. The disciple defeated the disciples of Shenquan sect 5/5, met the hidden standard. The epic task completion rate is 100%, and the host obtains 200 contribution points. Ding. Sect contribution value 1705/2000. Strange. Jun Changxiao was puzzled and said, all 3 tasks meet the requirements and have reached 100%. Why hasn't the epic task been completed yet? Master Jun. While thinking, Elder Jun said with a grim expression, please wait a moment. There are 2 disciples in my Shenquan sect who are in seclusion. I have sent someone to notify them. Oh. Jun Changxiao responded. The 2 disciples in seclusion must be Gu Chaojiu and Jian Feifan. There are only 7 disciples in Shenquan sect, and now 5 have gone to fight. They must be the 2. These 2 are the most core disciples of Shenquan sect. It is said that one has the qualifications of a saint, and the other is a rare sword cultivator. Their strength is also good. Everyone whispered. One has the qualifications of a saint, and the other is a sword cultivator. Jun Changxiao held his chin and said, it's a bit tricky. Master. Lu Qian Qian said, leave the saint qualifications to me. Zhao Hang said, Master, that sword cultivator, I hope to fight with him. Okay. Jun Changxiao said with a smile. He still had a lot of confidence in these 2 disciples. After all, one of them was also a saint level qualification, and the other was also a sword cultivator. Not long after, two disciples wearing the school uniforms of the Strongest Sect walked out of the inner courtyard. One of them had a lazy look, giving people the feeling of being unkempt, while the other had sword-like eyebrows and star-like eyes, and his whole body exuded a cold and fierce aura. From the temperament of the two, Jun Changxiao could also recognize that the one on the left must be Gu Chaojiu, who had the saint level qualification, and the one on the right was Jian Fifan, a sword cultivator. There are really many good seedlings in the Strongest Sect, including King Lin Feng before. If the three of them were to join the Tigu Zheng sect and be trained by themselves, their strength and realm would definitely skyrocket. Jun Changxiao shook his head and said, it's a bit of a waste of talent in the Strongest Sect. Elder Gu Chaojiu came over, looking like he hadn't woken up yet, and said, this Tigu sect came to challenge, so is it necessary to call out the two of us? The corners of everyone's mouth twitched. He probably didn't know that his own sect had lost 70 games and lost miserably. Jian Fifan didn't say anything, but instinctively looked at Zhao Hang opposite him, with a strong fighting spirit flashing in his dark eyes. Elder. He walked towards the martial arts arena and said, I will go out first. Master, I challenge you to fight. Before Jun Changxiao could respond, Zhao Hang walked out first. Step. The two stood in the center of the martial arts arena at the same time, looking at each other, and a sharp aura instantly emerged from their bodies. This is sword intent. Is that Tigu sect disciple also a sword cultivator? Everyone's eyes widened. Previously there was a sword cultivator, and now there is a sword cultivator. The Tigu sect is not high level, and there are all kinds of warriors. Disciple of Tigu sect, Zhao Hang. Disciple of Strongest Sect, Jian Fifan. After the two sword cultivators introduced themselves, the sword intent gathered in the martial arts arena became stronger, and the warriors who were closer were shocked and took several steps back. Chapter 292 Winning 72 games. Zhao Hang and Jian Fifan were a few meters apart, and the sword intent they released began to clash, shocking everyone and making them retreat. A sword cultivator is a sword cultivator, and they are indeed different. Many warriors envy him to death. The sword is a commonly used weapon. If you become a sword cultivator, your own status will also skyrocket. What a pity. The requirements to become a sword cultivator are too harsh, and not everyone can become one if they want to. Even if the system is in hand, the Master Jun, who is equivalent to cheating, has no qualifications for sword cultivation, so he has to be a martial arts cultivator. Although Yi Xingchen, the reborn emperor, has practiced the Lingjian divine art, he is still just a martial arts cultivator, and he has nothing to do with sword cultivation. Begin. The referee shouted. Zhao Hang and Jian Fifan have been looking at each other. After a while, they took 10 steps back at the same time, keeping a sufficient distance from each other. The two did not burst out with momentum, nor did they burst out with spiritual energy. They just looked at each other, and the picture seemed to be frozen. Jun Changxiao's mouth twitched as he said, here we go. When he accepted Zhao Hang into his sect, he thought that a duel between a swordsman and a swordsman would be boring, and a duel between swordsmen would be even more boring. Show your sword, Zhao Hang said. Jian Fifan said, my sword will only be unsheathed when I attack. Attack. When I attack, the sword will definitely bleed. So I attack first. When fighting with sword cultivators, I like to let the opponent draw the sword first. Why? Because it can measure the strength of the opponent and whether it is worth it for me to draw the sword. Everyone's mouth twitched. You two, you are fighting. Can you stop chatting and start fighting? We are all sleepy. They are waiting impatiently. Zhao Hang said, they must want us to fight quickly. Jian Fifan said, they don't understand that the conversation between you and me is actually a contest. Jun Changxiao couldn't stand it anymore. He really wanted to send an emoticon package of "Is this the world of sword cultivators?" to express his collapsed mood. Clang. Zhao Hang finally unsheathed his sword and said, if a sword cultivator is not understood by the world, he is doomed to be lonely. I agree. Jian Fifan said. Zhao Hang held the sword with one hand and said, I'm going to attack. Please. Jian Fifan said. Swish, swish, swish. Zhao Hang took a step forward, and the ancient longsword suddenly slashed in the void, and sword lights burst out in an instant. So fast, the strong men of various factions exclaimed. Even though they had been watching intently, they still couldn't catch how many times Zhao Hang had used the sword in one breath. Jian Feifan caught it, and was shocked. He actually used 60 swords in one breath, which was 30 more than himself. This must have used some advanced sword skills. Clang, while thinking, Jian Feifan waved his hand, and a 3-foot-long sword appeared out of thin air, directly slashing out unparalleled sword energy in the void. Ding, ding, ding. The two sword energies collided suddenly, and a crisp sound came out, as if interweaving beautiful music. The sword energy was completely neutralized, and the two men still stood there with their swords. Zhao Hang said, "You attack twice." Jian Feifan smiled bitterly and said, "You have too much sword energy, so I can only attack once more." Sword energy. Zhao Hang turned his wrist and said, "Jing Hang." The sword was unsheathed, and the sword light flashed. Whoosh. The unparalleled sword energy, with a cold and fierce momentum, instantly attacked Jian Feifan, and its power was far stronger than when it was used in the Death Valley. Li Qingyang and others were getting stronger. Zhao Hang, who was always comprehending the sword, would be in trouble if he stood still. Swish. Facing the incoming sword energy, Jian Feifan held the sword with both hands, suddenly chopped from top to bottom, and shouted, "Long rainbow piercing the sun." Whoosh. The sword energy burst out. Boom. The two sword energies collided directly with each other, and the cold and fierce wind whistled in an instant, sweeping everyone's face like a knife cut. Although these two sword cultivators talked a lot of nonsense, when they really fought, the sword intent that burst out was so scary. The second fight was evenly matched. Zhao Hang bent down slightly, his slightly weathered face exuding a cold and fierce look. Hoo-hoo. In an instant, a spirit-like aura emerged from his body, and the leaves that were swaying in the wind were instantly cut on the spot. The stone slab under his feet, that was shaken open by the fight between Zhao Zuji and King Lin Feng, was also cut into small pieces. Jian Feifan frowned, sheathed his sword, and said, "You won." Huh. Everyone was stunned. Judging from the situation, no one could do anything to anyone, so why did they surrender? Only Yi Xingchen knew that the sword force released by Zhao Hang was actually the second style of Lingjian Shenju, the two-character force formula. After only practicing Lingjian Shenju for less than a year, he had comprehended the second style. His kendo aptitude was indeed strong. Clang. Zhao Hang sheathed his sword and said, "Thank you." He really wanted to fight Jian Feifan happily, but at this moment, he represented the Tigu school and had to focus on winning the duel. Jian Feifan put the sword into the space ring, bowed and said, "If there is a chance in the future, I will go to the Tigu sect and learn your sword moves again. You are welcome anytime." Zhao Hang said. Everyone collapsed. You two talked a lot of nonsense, but the fight ended in less than a minute. It's too fucked up. This is a duel between sword cultivators. Once you lose to the other party to some extent, there is no need to continue fighting, unless it's a life or death. What's more, Zhao Hang is stronger than Jian Feifan in terms of sword power, and he used the second move of Lingjian Shenju. The latter couldn't take the sword move, and ended up dying under the sword. It's not a life and death battle, why bother to put it to death? The duel between sword cultivators ended with the victory of the Tigu faction. The injured one must be the Strongest Sect. After all, it lost another battle. Chao Jiu, Elder Jin said in a trembling voice, "This last battle must be won." Got it, got it. Gu Chaojiu scratched his head and walked to the martial arts arena with a lazy walk. Qian Qian, go. Jun Changxiao smiled. Lu Qian Qian touched the bracelet he gave her and stepped onto the martial arts arena. This last battle is always the finale, but the Tigu sect actually sent a female disciple. They have won too many matches, so they don't respect the Strongest Sect. In my opinion, maybe they are letting the fifth-rate sect down. After all, they have lost 71 matches. Everyone whispered. Gu Chaoji was startled and thought to himself, my Strongest Sect has lost 71 matches. No wonder the elders and fellow disciples looked so ugly. Gu Chaoji, who was a little careless, immediately stood up straight and his eyes became sharp, as if he had changed into a different person in an instant. Girl, he said solemnly, although you are a woman, For the honor of the sect, I will not show mercy. Lu Qian stopped and said lightly, Lu Qian, a disciple of the Tiguzheng sect. Gu Chaojiu, a disciple of the Shengquan sect. After the two of them announced their names, the referee shouted, begin. Crack, crack, crack. In an instant, a stream of cold air whistled out from Lu Qian's body, and the ground quickly froze wherever it passed. Oh my god. Gu Chaojiu said in surprise, ice-type martial artist. 9-layer ice palm. Lu Qian raised her right palm with the ice bracelet, and a stronger stream of cold swept over. Not good. Gu Chaojiu's face changed in shock, and he was about to use his body skills to escape, but his speed became slow under the harassment of the cold air, and frost gradually filled his entire face. Just as the disciple of the saint spiritual root was about to speak, he was ravaged by the cold current and suddenly his legs opened wide and he ran, turning into a lifelike ice sculpture. Swish. Lu Qian waved her long sleeves, and the strong spiritual power swept over, instantly pushing him to the ice on the ground, and he slipped out of the martial arts field. Everyone almost fell down. Crack, crack, crack. After a few breaths, Gu Chaojiu was unsealed. He was so cold that he hugged his shoulders and sneezed non-stop, and his nose ran down unconsciously. Elder Jun Changxiao bowed and said, sorry, my disciples won again. Chapter 293 Mission accomplished. Breakthrough to Wuzhang. The last match is always the final battle, and it will be extremely fierce. But at the beginning of the game, Gu Chaojiu was frozen, and then he slid out of the martial arts field in a running posture, which surprised all parties. Is this the end? It's over. Gu Chaojiu, who has the qualifications of a holy spiritual root, lost after only saying 9 words after the referee called out the start. The degree of tragedy is not inferior to De Lu. After all, that is the strongest disciple of Shengquan sect. It can only be said that he was careless. Because Gu Chaojiu didn't expect Lu Qian to be an ice-type martial artist, and he didn't expect the intensity of the cold air to freeze himself. Yi Xingchen frowned, and thought to himself, this woman's control of the ice system has reached the point of perfection. He is confident that he can defeat Gu Chaojiu, but it will never be so easy. What is the origin of this senior sister? What kind of ice-type skills has she practiced? Can she be so powerful? Elder Jun Chang smiled and said, sorry, my disciple won again. Puff. Elder Jun couldn't bear it anymore, and spurted out a mouthful of blood on the spot. The corners of the mouths of all parties twitched. 72 fights, 72 losses. Now they can fully understand the pain in Elder Jun's heart, and understand his vomiting blood. If it were their own sect fighting against the Tigu sect, they might have vomited blood, and lost their minds, after losing the 10th match. Alas. Today, Shengquan sect is completely defeated. Sect Master Jun is very happy now. After Lu Qian defeated Gu Chaojiu, she met the definition conditions, completed the epic mission 3, and obtained 120% completion, and obtained 1000 contribution points. Because of the overfulfillment, she obtained a seal opening talisman, a bottle of qualification transformation liquid, and some experience. Strange. Why didn't I break through? Just as Jun Changxiao was thinking, the spiritual energy in his body began to rotate wildly. The cyclone gradually materialized and finally condensed into a crystal core-like existence. What is this? He was extremely surprised. The system said, this is a spiritual core that only martial arts sects can have. It is an upgraded version of the cyclone. It can store more spiritual power and transform it into stronger spiritual energy. I see. Jun Changxiao suddenly realized. At this moment, a stream of pure spiritual energy emerged from the spirit core, slowly rotating beside it, and gathered into a cyclone. What's going on? Jun Changxiao said with a smile. The system was surprised. The host actually condensed a cyclone after breaking through the martial sect. According to the information it searched on the Xinjiang continent, some martial artists can open up 2 or more cyclones in their danshan for some reason. But after breaking through the martial sect, no matter how many cyclones there are, they will merge into one, thus forming a spirit core that is larger than others. The advantage is that there is enough space, enough capacity, and strong endurance. There is no document on the mainland that Jun Changxiao, who has broken through the martial sect, has already gathered a spirit core and derived another cyclone. The system was also a little confused for a while. Just at this moment, the spiritual energy in the spirit core began to condense and gradually became pure. Jun Changxiao felt that his own strength was increasing crazily, and he easily broke through 150,000 katis, 200,000 katis, 250,000 katis, a little bit. The improvement stopped. The system said, breaking through from a martial arts master to a martial arts master, the original strength has doubled. The host has one more cyclone, and now the strength has reached 300,000 jin. 300,000 jin. Jun Changxiao's eyes suddenly became hot. He had experienced the pleasure of 300,000 jin of strength, but it was relying on the power increasing talisman. Now that he has entered the martial arts master, he has this level of strength, and the feeling must be different. The system said, the strength of an ordinary first grade martial arts master is about 100,000. Although the host has just broken through, it is no problem for one person to beat the three of them. How much strength does a first grade martial arts master with excellent qualifications have? Jun Changxiao said with a smile. The system calculated it and said, the top first grade martial arts master can reach 250,000 strength, and the host is 50,000 higher than that. Only 50,000. This is only 50,000. It's really cool. You know, the system is talking about the extreme martial arts master. This kind of existence is the top genius in the Xingqiu continent. The host has broken through the martial arts master, which is 50,000 higher than the top genius. It can be classified as a super genius. Super genius? It sounds awesome. The evaluation given by the system is not absent in Xingqiu continent. Some high-level sects must have strong people with holy and divine spiritual roots. They may rarely take action, but their strength is absolutely overwhelming those with top-grade spiritual roots. Ding. The host successfully broke through to the second-grade martial arts sect. Hearing the prompt, Jun Changxiao's blood boiled. After all, every time he completed an epic task, his cultivation would be continuously improved. But after waiting for a while, there was no sign of improvement. Jun Changxiao's mouth twitched and said, after completing the epic task, I will move from a peak martial artist to a second grade martial arts sect. After the realm is upgraded, the difficulty of cultivation will increase. The host has stepped into the martial arts sect and upgraded one level. Isn't it satisfied? The system said speechlessly. Of course not. At least I have to break through to the third or fourth level. Wait. Why is the outside world so quiet? Jun Changxiao quickly regained his mind, and then he realized that everyone around him was staring at him with big eyes, with unbelievable eyes. The nearby disciples were also stunned. Master, Li Qingyang said in shock, you just made such a loud noise. Did you break through to the martial arts sect? When Master Jun broke through, a strong wave of air was released from his body, which instantly filled most of the martial arts field, and shocked everyone present. My god. Bringing disciples to challenge the Strongest Sect, and breaking through the realm by the way, what kind of operation is this? Jun Changxiao explained rather awkwardly, the disciple won 72 games, and I couldn't help it for a while, and expose the hidden cultivation. Don't mind. As soon as this was said, the corners of everyone's mouth twitched again. This guy who seemed to have only the cultivation of martial arts master turned out to have hidden cultivation. Just said it. Even if he really breaks through a great realm, he can't burst out the momentum of advancement one after another. Everyone believed the poor lies of sect leader Jun, because they didn't think that someone could break through the Wuzang and advance from the first rank to the second rank. Then again, the sect leader of a 7th stream sect actually has the cultivation of a Wuzang. This is really incredible. Li Qingyang and others were also stunned. It turned out that the sect leader had been hiding his cultivation. He turned out to be a genuine Wuzang. Can't see through. What is my current strength? Jun Chang smiled. The system said, according to the host's level of improvement, it should be around 330,000. Only 30,000. After breaking through one level, the increase in the strength of a martial master is 10,000 to 20,000 jin. The host can reach 30,000, which is far beyond the highest standard. Oh. Jun Chang smiled in response, then looked at Elder Jin who was shaking with anger, and said, all the disciples of my Tegu sect who can fight have already gone to the battle, so I will take my leave first. Complete the task and level up. There is no point in being here, I must leave. Elder Jin suppressed his anger and said, since Master Jun has come all the way to challenge you, it is probably unreasonable to only let disciples fight. What do you mean? Jun Chang smiled. Elder Jin said, since Master Jun has the cultivation of a martial master, this elder would like to learn some tricks. PS. Please recommend on monthly votes. Chapter 294 Super. Jun Changxiao wanted to leave, but Elder Jin disagreed. He decisively declared war on him as the head of the sect as an elder. The highlight is coming. Qin Horan was secretly delighted. What kind of secret deal did this guy have when he left Aoki sect for Strongest Sect? It's very simple. When Jun Changxiao comes to fight, the elders will fight with him. Not to mention killing him, at least they will be seriously injured and psychologically traumatized. The same is true for the disciples of Tegu sect. Whenever there is a chance, they will be beaten bloody and lose their confidence in practicing martial arts. As a result, the result was contrary to expectations, and it was Strongest Sect that was beaten. The disciples are not strong. There is nothing they can do. Now that Elder Jin has personally declared war on Jun Changxiao, he will definitely be able to beat him to out his life. After all, he has the cultivation of an 8th grade martial arts sect. Boy, aren't you awesome? If you have the courage, agree to it quickly. Elder Jin has declared war. My disciples have lost 72 games in a row, so they can't help it. Elder Jin is an 8th grade martial sect. Judging from the aura that sect leader Jun just burst out, he is only a 2nd grade martial sect at most. There is no way to fight him. Warriors from all forces looked at Jun Changxiao. Ma Yunteng wanted to help him out, but he didn't know how to help. After all, he took the initiative to challenge Strongest Sect, so it was reasonable for the elders to declare war on him. Why? Elder Jin said, sect leader Jun doesn't dare. It's not that I don't dare. Jun Changxiao said, but if I beat Elder Jin again, your Strongest Sect will be disgraced. Everyone's mouths twitched. A 2nd grade martial sect is so arrogant. Elder Jin said with a smile, if Sect Master Jun can win, it means that he is very powerful. How can this elder be discredited if he is not as skilled as him? In his heart, he was roaring, if I don't beat you, the sect master, my Strongest Sect will be discredited. Do you really want to fight? Really want to fight? In that case. Jun Changxiao shrugged and said, then let's fight. What a reluctant tone. City Lords and Patriarch AI behind him all twitched their mouths. Sect Master Jun was only a 2nd grade martial sect. When he went to fight Elder Jin, an 8th grade martial sect, they really couldn't think of where the comeback would be. HMPH. Leah said lightly, the leader of the Tegu sect must have lost his mind. Zijingxuan smiled and said, the disciples of the Tegu sect are so powerful under his training, so the strength of the leader Jun must be not weak either. My palace master, Elder Jin is a high-level 8th grade martial artist, and his strength is at least 320,000. Leah said, even if Jun Changxiao is an extremely 2nd grade martial artist, it is already very good to have a strength of 270,000. That's right. Zijingxuan said. Leah continued, besides, Elder Jin is a veteran martial artist, and he is very skilled in the use of various martial arts. How can a 2nd grade martial artist win? The analysis makes sense. Zijingxuan smiled and said, however, I still think that the leader Jun will win. Leah, my palace master, what's wrong with you? Unlike Zijingxuan, the warriors of all forces believe that Jun Changxiao will lose, and lose extremely miserably. They are not as professional as Leah thinks, but because there is a difference of 6 levels between the 2nd grade and the 8th grade, there is absolutely no possibility of a comeback. TSK. The disciple of the Holy Lily sect said lightly, you don't know what you can do. Mirangzin didn't say anything. She only paid attention to Zhao Zuji and had no interest in the fights of others. A little while, under the attention of the crowd, Jun Changxiao walked towards the martial arts arena. Behind him, Liu Wanshi waved her hand and shouted loudly, the leader will win. The leader will win. The disciples of the Iron Bone Sect also shouted. Boy, Li Xingchen said secretly, if you can defeat the 8th grade martial arts master, this emperor will recognize you as the leader. The gap between each grade in the martial arts master stage is not that between a martial arts apprentice and a martial arts master. It is almost impossible to fight and win 6 grades above the level. Even so, Li Xingchen still prefers Jun Changxiao. After all, he has a lot of good things, and he may have some powerful trump cards. Li Qingyang, Xiao Zuji and others don't have such complicated thoughts. They just support the leader without thinking, no matter how big the gap is with the opponent. Step. Jun Changxiao stopped and bowed, saying, the leader of the Strongest Sect, Jun Changxiao. Very imposing and stylish. Elder Jun also came over and said indifferently, the internal affairs elder of the Strongest Sect, Jun Changxiao. The leader versus the elder. This battle is fair in terms of status. Start. The referee shouted. Hoo-hoo. Elder Jun opened his right palm and instantly gathered spiritual energy visible to the naked eye, forming a strong air mass. The use of spiritual energy by the 8th grade martial sect has long been perfect, and this release alone is by no means comparable to that of a martial arts master. Swoosh. Elder Jun casually threw the spiritual energy air mass, which flew over like a cannonball. Everyone was secretly shocked. The seemingly light blow must have a force of more than 300,000 pounds. The martial sect master is so terrifying. The shocked people hurriedly looked at Jun Changxiao to see how he could dodge. That guy didn't move. Yes, Jun Changxiao stood still. When the violent air mass was about to sweep over, he took a step forward and hit it with his right fist. A 2nd grade martial sect dared to compete with the spiritual energy gathered by the 8th grade martial sect. This is too much. Boom. There was a bang. The 300,000 pounds of power gathered by Elder Jun was shattered on the spot by Jun Changxiao with a bursting fist. This. Everyone's eyes bulged. Elder Jun was also shocked and thought to himself, did this boy's strength just now also reach 300,000 Jin? Swish. While thinking, Jun Changxiao stepped on the Zhangyan step and approached instantly, raised his left hand, poured spiritual energy into it, and directly chopped out a mountain-splitting palm. Whoosh whoosh. With the blessing of the palm technique, the power continued to surge, and instantly soared to 350,000 Jin. Boom. Elder Jun blocked the mountain-splitting palm with his right arm, but after enduring the violent force, he not only staggered back more than 10 steps, but his face suddenly became ferocious. The warriors watching the battle were all stupid. The head of the Tegu sect shattered the air mass with one punch, and then beat Elder Jun back with another palm. The style of the painting was seriously wrong. Boom. At this moment, another explosion was heard. Jun Changxiao used his body technique to get behind Elder Jun and hit him hard on the side of his waist with an explosive fist. Thump thump thump. Elder Jun staggered back, his face becoming more ferocious, and it was obvious that the 2 punches had caused considerable damage. Damn it. He steadied himself and shouted with bloodshot eyes, Great Gathering Spirit Seal. Whoosh. The spiritual energy around him exploded, instantly filling the air and forming a thick cloud. Whoosh. A big hand pressed down from the spiritual layer, as if it came from the sky, and the momentum was also very vast. Elder Jun's Great Gathering Spirit Seal, in terms of scale and power, was far stronger than King Linfeng. Jun Changxiao, who was directly below, smiled coldly, and at the moment when the palm print pressed down, he suddenly blasted dozens of explosive punches towards it. The punches were very fast and the power was explosive. Bang, bang, bang. After a burst of bombardment, the Great Gathering Spirit Seal stopped abruptly, and then exploded with a boom in full view of everyone, and the gathered spiritual power cloud suddenly dissipated. Wow. Elder Jun spurted blood on the spot, his eyes filled with disbelief. Hiss. Warriors from all forces gasped in shock. Just with one fist, Elder Jun's Great Gathering Spirit Seal was broken. This is really terrifying. Li Xingchen's mouth twitched slightly. He was thinking about what trump card the sect master would show to fight back. Now that Elder Jun was beaten to vomit blood with just a fist, it can only mean that his strength completely surpassed the opponent. The 2nd grade martial sect is stronger than the 8th grade martial sect. Could it be that the sect master is a super level? Chapter 295 Abuse of Elder Jun. In the cognition of many warriors, the levels under the realm subdivision are ordinary, medium, high and extreme. In fact, in the circle of top powerhouses, there is also a super division, which means the same as the super genius of the system. But to achieve this, at least you have to start with a holy spiritual root. For example, Jun Changxiao, he has a holy spiritual root. Although he is only a super martial artist for the time being, he has the opportunity to become a super level because of his talent. Even if King Lin Feng has a super spiritual root, no matter how hard he tries, he can only stop at the extreme level due to the limitation of spiritual roots. In the final analysis, what kind of spiritual root determines the level to a large extent? But the disciples of the Tegu school are an exception. Many of them have ordinary and medium spiritual roots, but their true strength is high among the same level. Ignore the spiritual roots and forcibly increase the strength. This is a charm of Jun Changxiao, providing various resources, and the reason why he fought 72 games and won 72 games. Of course, no matter how much you stimulate, there is a limit. If the disciples of the Tegu school want to go to the next level, they can only improve their spiritual roots. Let's get back to the point. Jun Changxiao, who possesses the best spiritual roots, gathered a cyclone out of thin air after breaking through the martial arts master, which can definitely be called super. Elder Jin's strength is 320,000 without martial arts and other factors, while his is 330,000. Although there is only a difference of 10,000, it is an indisputable fact that he is stronger than the other party. Swish. Jun Changxiao rushed over again, not giving Elder Jin a chance to breathe, and launched a fierce close combat. With the blessing of martial arts, the strength easily broke through to more than 350,000. Boom. Boom. Fists and palm prints like a storm erupted in the martial arts field. The airwaves formed, spread around like ripples, and the warriors who were closer retreated one after another, fearing that they would be affected. Yi Xingchen observed for a while, and said firmly in his heart, he must be at the super level. The corners of the mouths of the warriors from all forces twitched. It turned out that the head of the Tegu sect was more terrible than his disciples, and he could suppress the 8th grade martial arts master. Seeing Elder Jin fall into a passive state, the expressions on Qin Horan and the alliance bosses froze, and their eyes were filled with horror. What kind of magic medicine did this guy take to become so strong in just 1 year? Or, has he been deliberately suppressing his cultivation from the beginning? Are you pretending to be a pig and eating a tiger? Ma Yunteng suddenly realized, no wonder sect master Jun has such a high attainment in martial arts. He is a martial arts master. Just say it. Without strong strength, how can you solve the puzzles in martial arts for yourself? City Lord Z thought differently. He thought that sect master Jun was so strong, maybe it was really related to the ancient inheritance of the sect. In short, no one would think that Jun Changxiao would break through from the 3rd stage of opening meridians to the 2nd grade martial arts master in just over a year. Because this is too terrifying. So hiding his cultivation is the most logical explanation. Boom. Boom. Jun Changxiao attacked again with 2 punches with explosive fists, knocking Elder Jin back to the edge of the martial arts field. His face was extremely ferocious, and his arms were in pain. At this moment, he had also realized that his strength was weaker than the opponent, and he would only be more passive if he continued to fight. Who? Elder Jin spread his arms and rotated them regularly in the air. The powerful spiritual energy gathered and suddenly pushed out, shouting, "Dragon subduing demon palm." Who? The surging spiritual energy instantly turned into a long dragon, making a dragon roar and roaring towards Jun Changxiao. Whoosh! The lifelike dragon beast continued to increase its power and finally broke through to more than 400,000. One of the unique skills of the Iron Sect. Everyone exclaimed. Every sect or sect has a unique and powerful technique, which is often called the unique skill of the sect. The top grade and high level dragon subduing demon palm is one of the unique skills of the Iron Sect. This move uses spiritual energy to transform the dragon beast, which is extremely strong and masculine, and has incomparable power. Oh my god. Jun Changxiao, who was about to continue attacking, saw the dragon beast coming strongly, and hurriedly stepped on the cloud stretching step to avoid it. However, the dragon subduing demon palm that flew by seemed to have a positioning function. It turned around in midair and attacked again with strong power. Not good. Jun Changxiao, who had just dodged, exclaimed. Boom. The dragon subduing and demon subduing palm carrying 400,000 juns of force rushed over and immediately produced a spiritual power like a thick fog, flooding most of the martial arts field. The surroundings were extremely quiet. Everyone was watching the airwaves on the martial arts field, their eyes full of shock. Obviously, they were deeply shocked by Elder Jun's powerful move. He is worthy of being an 8th grade martial arts master. Even though he was a little embarrassed just now, he still had the ease to use his trump card and launched a powerful counterattack. Elder Jun's dragon subduing and demon subduing palm has at least 400,000 juns of force. Sect leader Jun will definitely be seriously injured if he is it. You are still too young in front of the senior martial master. I have to say that forcing Elder Jun to use the sect's unique skills with the cultivation of a 2nd grade martial master is already very remarkable. The warriors of various forces discussed, their eyes full of admiration. The faces of Alliance Master Qin and the Alliance bosses were full of gloating news. Although it came a little late, it was still very cool. Gradually, the airwaves on the martial arts field dissipated. Alliance Master Qin and others, who were smiling complacently, gradually stiffened their facial muscles as the airwaves disappeared. It was clearly visible on the field that Jun Chang smiled proudly, with a barrier protecting his body. Seal shield. The moment the dragon subduing demon palm came, Sect Master Jun activated it. Although it was only at the 1st level of the upper grade, it was a defensive martial art bought in the mall. With his cultivation, he could condense a barrier, which was far stronger than holding a strong iron shield. Elder Jun Changxiao said with a smile, your power is a little weak. Elder Jun was furious, his arms spun in the air, and then he gathered his spiritual energy and used the dragon subduing palm again. Boom. The roaring dragon beast rushed over again. When the airwave dissipated, Jun Changxiao still stood there, with a disdainful smile on his face. My god. Someone exclaimed, what kind of defensive martial arts is this that can easily take on the best high-level martial arts? Seeing the shock on the faces of the warriors from all forces, the disciples of the Tigu sect were immediately very proud, because they could also use the seal shield that the master used. Damn it. Elder Jun was so angry that he gathered his spiritual energy again to use the dragon subduing palm, but after 3 consecutive attacks, Jun Changxiao still couldn't be shaken. Powerless. Very powerless. It was like more than 400,000 forces hitting cotton and being completely offset. How could Elder Jun be willing to give up? Just as he was about to gather spiritual energy to bombard again, Jun Changxiao removed the barrier and attacked with the Cloud Strong Step. This time, he did not hold back at all. He combined his martial arts with his own strength to launch an overwhelming offensive. Boom. 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 The force of each punch hit Elder Jun again and again, forcing him to block and retreat continuously. After performing the dragon subduing demon palm, a lot of spiritual energy in the spiritual core was already consumed, so it became more passive. Explosive fist. Mountain splitting palm. Sect Master Jun was unyielding and used 2 domineering martial arts with his left and right hands in succession, which immediately made Elder Jun miserable. Swish. After a long time, he put his fists away and stood. Elder Jun half turned his body, his arms still instinctively up and down, left and right, Baba blocking, and he couldn't stop at all. Chapter 296, The Master of Strongest Sect. Seeing Elder Jun facing the air alone, blocking up and down, left and right, the warriors of various forces immediately had black lines on their foreheads. How strong must it be to beat an 8th grade martial master into such a state? Don't shake, Elder Jun. Jun Changxiao shook his head and said, I have stopped. Elder Jun was startled, and then he realized that the guy did not attack, but stood at the edge of the martial arts arena, so his old face flushed. How embarrassing. Wait, he is at the edge of the martial arts arena? What about me? Elder Jun hurriedly looked down and found that he had stepped over the edge and stood outside the martial arts arena. I was beaten out by Master Jun invisibly. Elder Jun was so angry that the blood in his body rushed up along his throat and splashed directly His body also staggered backwards and almost fell to the ground. He was a dignified 8th grade martial master, but he was beaten out of the martial arts arena by a 2nd grade martial master. This is a great shame. Elder Jun Changxiao bowed and said with a smile, "Thank you. Ding. Complete the side quest and get 500 contribution points. Ding. Contribution value 3205/2000. Ding. The sect's contribution value overflowed. Host, please return it within 24 hours. It turned out that when Elder Jin declared war, Sect Master Jun accepted the side quest to defeat him. It seems that the system also calculated it carefully and gave me an elite task. Oh. I said to leave, but I was not allowed to leave. As a result, I was embarrassed in public, and I was given 500 contribution points. This kind of thing. Can it happen more often in the future? Jun Changxiao is really in a good mood now. After all, including the epic mission 3, he has already obtained 3500 contribution points in Strongest Sect. The feeling of getting rich overnight, isn't it? What's more terrifying is that the contribution value has exceeded 1205 points, which can definitely be used to squander. Elder Jun Changxiao bowed and said, "Can I take my disciples away?" He was now in a hurry to find a place with beautiful mountains and clear waters and full of metaphysics to refresh himself. Elder Jin stood outside the martial arts arena, his fists clenched, his eyes bloodshot, and he was extremely angry. Why did he open the mountain gate this time? To let all forces in? Isn't it to tell the world that any sect that dares to challenge their own sect must pay a heavy price? What was the result? The warriors watching the battle did not see how the disciples of the Tegu sect were brutally abused, but instead witnessed the disciples of the Strongest sect being abused to the point of having no desire to live. This is equivalent to opening the door wide and letting all forces come in to see their own sect being embarrassed. If the news gets out, it will definitely become a laughingstock. If the 4 brothers of the Wei family were still alive and standing in front of him, Elder Jin would definitely slap them to death without hesitation. Why? Because everything started with them. The disciples have competed, and the high-level officials of both sides have also competed. Ma Yunteng stood up and said, "In my opinion, this challenge can be ended. Strongest Sect has lost so much face. If they don't come out to say it, they will definitely continue to tangle." Elder Jun Changxiao bowed and said, "The journey is long. I will not stay for dinner, and I will take my disciples to leave first." Everyone's mouth twitched. "Brother, you have tortured Strongest Sect so miserably. If you dare to stay for dinner, believe it or not, you will fight directly at the dinner table. Let's go." Jun Changxiao snapped his fingers and turned to leave, but a heavy voice came from the hall. "Master Jun, please stay." Swish, swish. A white shadow fell on the martial arts field like a flying dragon. It was a white-haired old man in his 70s wearing a long robe, and the aura of a long-time superior was all over his body. "Meet the sect master." The elders and disciples of Strongest Sect saluted respectfully. Ma Yunteng frowned. At this critical moment, the leader of Strongest Sect appeared. I'm afraid he didn't want to let it go. Jun Chang smiled and turned around and said, "Anything else?" The leader of Strongest Sect was at the peak of martial arts, and his eyes were extremely strong. He looked at him calmly. "Awesome." Ma Yunteng praised secretly. Facing a strong man, he was able to remain calm in the face of danger. Sect leader Jun definitely has the demeanor of a great general. The leader of Strongest Sect was also quite surprised, but smiled and said, "Sect leader Jun is so young, but he can defeat my elder of Strongest Sect. It's really admirable. Lucky, lucky." Jun Chang smiled. He beat people so hard that they were stunned. If this was lucky, it would be weird. Sect leader Jun, the leader of Strongest Sect said, "I want to fight with you. Can you accept it?" This. Jun Changxiao was entangled. Wang Donglin said lightly, "Master Huang, Master Jun just fought with the elders of your sect, and you declared war right after that. This is a bit bullying. As one of the 4 elders of Kangshan sect, he is a peak martial sect, and his momentum is not inferior to that of the leader of Strongest Sect." Ma Yunteng smiled and said, "The elders have already fought. If Master Huang fights again, it will only make people think that Strongest Sect is bullying others. These 2 elders, who are the 4 rich people of Yun, Teng, Wang, and Dong clearly support the Tegu sect. Warriors from all forces can understand. After all, in a county, not helping their own people, but helping outsiders to unite internally? Thinking of this, many warriors looked at Qin Mengsu and the big boss of the alliance intentionally or unintentionally, and cast contemptuous eyes. From the beginning, these people seemed to be waiting to see the Iron Bone Sect laugh. They never thought that, if they beat the Shenquan sect, wouldn't it be a honor for their own county? Realizing that everyone despised them, some alliance leaders suddenly felt ashamed. However, Qin Mengsu and Shentang were still holding on. They said in their hearts, "Boy, the leader of the Shenquan sect has declared war on you. You should accept the challenge quickly." Alas, it's completely hopeless. Elder Ma, Elder Wang, the leader of the Shenquan sect, said calmly, "Master Jun can rest in my sect for a while and fight again on another day." Ma Yunteng and Wang Danglin's faces suddenly became ugly. Warriors from all forces also realized that the leader of the Shenquan sect did not intend to let Master Jun go. Think about it. The Iron Bone Sect came to challenge, and they fought 73 games. Shenquan sect lost all of them. If he let him go, where would the face of the sect be? It seems, if Master Jun doesn't go back with some injuries, this matter will definitely not be over. Lia Zijingxuan said, "Master Jun seems to be in some trouble. Should I go and help him out?" Lia said speechlessly, "My palace master, this is a matter between their Tegu sect and Shenquan sect. Let's not get involved. Master Jun is an extraordinary person. I don't want him to be bullied by sect master Huang." Zijingxuan said. Lia said seriously, "Palace master, you have to think carefully. Helping this guy will cause unpleasantness with Shenquan sect. 73 fights without winning anyone. Even if such a sect has a grudge, it doesn't seem to matter." Zijingxuan said. "Girl." These words hurt Shenquan sect's heart. Zijingxuan got up from the small pavilion and was about to speak to help Jun Changxiao out of trouble, but heard him laugh and say, "Sect Master Huang, it's better to do it now than to wait for another day. If you want to fight, let's do it now." Chapter 297. The peak martial arts master is indeed powerful. Master Huang, it's better to fight now than to wait for a day. If you want to fight, let's fight now. Jun Changxiao's voice was very loud and clear, and it was transmitted to everyone's ears. He accepted the challenge. Everyone's eyes were instantly wide open. Shenquan sect is a peak martial sect, only one step away from the king of martial arts. The head of Tegu sect is only a second-grade martial sect. He dared to accept the challenge. What kind of courage does it take to do it? At that moment, everyone admired Jun Changxiao even more. In their place, let alone a second-grade martial sect, even if they had the cultivation of a 9th-grade martial sect, they would not dare to challenge a peak martial sect. Ma Yunteng and Wang Danglin, who were still thinking about how to help Jun Changxiao, twitched their mouths. "My master Jun, it's understandable that you accept the challenge from Elder Jun, but it's a bit unreasonable to challenge a peak martial sect." Why? Because the two knew that the master of Shenquan sect was an extremely peak martial sect, and his pure strength was at least more than 450,000 pounds. Just now, Jun Changxiao's burst was 350,000 at most, and there was a difference of 100,000 jins between him and the other party. How should this battle be fought? Some people think that it is only a difference of 100,000 jins, so it is not a big problem. You know, Elder Jin and Sect Master Jun only had a difference of 20,000 to 30,000 jins of strength, but they were beaten up and down, left and right. Zijingxuan sat down, picked up a strand of black hair in front of her forehead, and said with a smile, "Sect Master Jun still wants to fight. Lia, I have seen reckless people. I have never seen such recklessness." TSK, the female disciple of the Lily Holy Sect, said lightly, "Don't know how to live or die." Jun Changxiao accepted the challenge of Elder Jin. She described it as overestimating one's own ability, but unfortunately he was slapped in the face. This time, the description of not knowing how to live or die is enough to show that the guy can't defeat the sect master of the Holy Spring sect and even bet his life. It is impossible for a second-grade martial sect to challenge a strong man who is infinitely close to the martial king. Just think about it with your feet. The leader of Shenquan sect said, "Master Jun has agreed." Do the two elders of Kangshan sect have any objections? Ma Yunteng and Wang Donglin were silent. Boy, you insist on going up to seek abuse, and we can't help you. Master Huang. Jun Changxiao said, I just fought a battle, and you are stronger than me. I wonder if you can use weapons? Fighting against a strong man at the peak martial arts level, he never thought that he could win with fists, but only with weapons. The Azure Dragon Crescent Blade. The leader of Shengquan sect said, Master Jun can use weapons, and I will go barehanded. Okay. Jun Changxiao thought that, since everyone was using weapons, you must be happy to accept it, since you want to go barehanded. That's it. The leader of Tigu sect and the leader of Shengquan sect made an agreement, and walked to the martial arts field separately. Master Huang is a top martial arts master. Even if Master Jun relies on weapons, there is still a huge gap. He will definitely be defeated in this battle. The Shengquan sect lost so many games. In the end, only the master can save a little face. Even if Master Jun can't win, it's still an honor to lose. It is not difficult to see from the words of the warriors of various forces that they are smiling towards Jun Chang at this time. Xinjiang continent respects martial arts. The 7th rate sect challenged the 5th rate sect and did not lose a single battle in 73 battles, which is enough to win the respect of others. However, fighting the master of the Shengquan sect is obviously a mantis trying to stop a chariot, and it is beyond one's ability. On the martial arts field, the two took their positions. Master Huang said gracefully, Master Jun, please show your weapon. Jun Changxiao raised his hand, and in the blurred space, the Azure Dragon Crescent Blade slowly appeared. Qin Horan's face turned pale, and his back began to itch. In the battle with Heoki sect, he was injured and defeated by this sword, so he would never forget it. Good sword. Ma Yunteng praised. Wang Donglin had seen the Azure Dragon Crescent Blade and witnessed Jun Changxiao defeating Qin Horan with it, but he shook his head pessimistically and said, the strength gap is too great, and it is difficult to make up for it with weapons. Master Jun. Sect leader Huang smiled and said, I'm afraid your sword is no less than the upper grade. Upper grade? Everyone's eyes were filled with astonishment. It is already very remarkable for a martial arts master to have a lower grade weapon, and he actually has a upper grade. Envy. Super envious. Jun Chang smiled and said, I guess so. He didn't know the level of the Azure Dragon Crescent Blade, but the system said that the stronger his strength, the stronger the power. Not to mention, after breaking through the 2nd grade martial arts master, holding the Azure Dragon Crescent Blade again, it felt very smooth and comfortable. The system said it can be controlled in front of 150,000 Jin of strength, and the host can use 330,000 Jin of strength freely. Sect leader Huang. Holding the big knife in Guanerai's hand, Jun Changxiao immediately felt very heroic and said, we can start now. Please. Master Huang said, I'll let you make the first move. Coming to fight with bare hands, and letting Jun Changxiao make the first move. This is to tell all the martial artists that he is not bullying the weak. Swish. Jun Changxiao is not a person who refuses. He rushed over with the Zhangyan step, then flew into the air, suddenly chopped down the Qinglang Yanyu sword, and shouted, split Huashan with force. Guan Yu. I haven't done it. Whoosh, the green blade light burst out, and the power it carried broke through 400,000 pounds. Sure enough, after entering the Wuzang, Jun Changxiao's strength increased, and he could better stimulate the Qinglang Yanyu sword. Whoosh, the green blade light chopped down with great force, and instantly rolled up a strong gust of wind, which also shocked everyone's mind. This knife is very scary. Huang Zhangsu was also full of surprise, but he also waved his sleeves, and the heavy spiritual energy condensed in the air, turning into a fist to meet him. Bang! The sword energy and the fist of spiritual energy collided and annihilated each other, but the impact brought about shattered the relatively intact stone slab. Pangu opens the sky. Just at this moment, Jun Changxiao, who was about to land, slammed down with his sword again, and the power of the explosion was stronger than before. Guan Yu, Pangu, opens the sky? Don't be ridiculous, this is not a feat I have done. Jun Changxiao has never practiced swordsmanship, and the so-called force-splitting Huashan and Pangu opening the sky are nothing more than shouting casually, to increase a little momentum. Hoo-hoo. The second sword formed a green sword light, which made Huang Zhang's face change slightly. He immediately made a complex handprint and quickly condensed a defensive barrier in front of him. Bang! The sword light slashed on the barrier and directly shattered it. Hiss! Everyone gasped. The defensive enchantment that Huang Zhangzu had condensed was actually cut off by that guy with one sword. How terrifying. Swish! Jun Changxiao took advantage of the victory and pursued, swinging his sword frequently, and shouted loudly, "Warm wine to kill Huaziyang. 3 heroes fight Lu Bu. Pass 5 levels, and kill 6 generals." Bang, bang, bang. 3 powerful swords slashed down, and Huang Zhangzu could only use his spiritual energy to condense the enchantment to block, and was blasted to pieces one after another. This guy's sword is very strong. You can't passively defend, you must take the initiative to attack. Huang Zhangzu leaped up and performed intricate steps, then went around behind Jun Changxiao, and his spiritual energy whistled over and condensed a large gathering spirit seal. Even Elder Jin could only condense the palm seal from the sky step by step. As the leader of a sect, being able to gather instantly and hit at a weird angle is the ultimate comprehension of martial arts. Not good. Jun Changxiao had no time to dodge, so he could only use the seal shield to confront head on. Bang! The force of at least 500,000 Jin hit the barrier, and Jun Changxiao dragged his Qinglang Yanyu sword back several steps. At this time, Sect Master Huang attacked again, raised his left and right hands, and pressed down with 2 large spirit gathering seals. Bang! Bang! Sect Master Jun was hit hard again, before he could stabilize his body. The condensed defense barrier collapsed instantly, and he retreated wildly. When he stabilized his body, his blood was boiling, and he was about to burst out. Damn it. The peak martial arts sect is really powerful. P.S. Please vote. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 298. Do you dare to fight me? After taking 3 big spirit gathering seals, the seal shield was broken, which shows the strength of the leader of Strongest Sect. There is really a big gap between Jun Changxiao and him. It is inevitable. The gap between the second grade and the peak is too big. Not only is there a difference in strength, but also in spiritual power and martial arts. The warriors of various forces watching the battle were a little confused. 3 palm strikes, the power was at least more than 500,000 pounds, but it only broke the barrier and forced the guy back a few steps, and he didn't even spit out blood. This is incredible. Sect Master Huang didn't rush to attack, but said in surprise, "Master Jun, the level of your defensive martial arts is probably not low, not high. It's only the initial stage of the upper grade. But because it is a mall martial art, it must be stronger than the defensive skills of the same level in Xinjiang continent. If it weren't for the seal shield, Master Jun would have been injured and defeated after 3 palm strikes. It's hard to win," Yi Xingchen said secretly. With such a huge gap in realm, he didn't think the master had a chance to turn the tables. Jun Changxiao exhaled, his eyes filled with seriousness. The leader of the Strongest Sect is a strong enemy, and he must take it seriously, otherwise he will lose miserably. Swish. Jun Changxiao stepped on the Zhangyan step and ran again, pouring spiritual energy into the Qinglang Yanyu sword, and the blade suddenly flashed with green light. But compared with the heavy spiritual energy of the Huang sect leader, there is still a big gap. Don't be afraid. Just go up and do it. Swish. The Qinglang Yanyu sword slashed down again, and the green blade light cut through the void and swept over. The Huang sect leader also knew that the opponent's weapon was strong, so he did not blindly use spiritual power to confront head on, but stepped on the body to avoid it. Bang. The sword energy cut the ground. Swish. Swish. Jun Changxiao took advantage of the situation and chopped again. Boom. Boom. For a while, the green blade light burst out and chopped on the ground frequently and immediately brought up rolling dust. Everyone's vision was obstructed, but they were also amazed that, although the leader of the Tigu sect was at a disadvantage, his momentum was very strong. This alone deserves respect. This time, whether it is the Tegu sect or Jun Changxiao, they have won fame and honor in the challenge to the Shengpan sect. Even if they lose to the leader of the Shengpan sect, it is not a shame. Boom. A heavy fist sound came from the dust. Tap, tap, tap. Jun Changxiao retreated all the way until he retreated to the edge of the martial arts field, and then he barely used the blade to chop the ground to stabilize his body. Wow. This time it was difficult to control, and a mouthful of blood spurted out. Judging from the situation, everyone guessed that the leader Jun must have been hit by the leader Huang again. Finally, vomited blood. Leader. The disciples of the Tegu sect were immediately worried. Yi Xingchen shook his head and said, standing in the martial arts field will only be beaten wildly. It is better to retreat quickly. Retreat? Jun Changxiao didn't plan to do so. He raised his hand, wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth, and raised the Azure Dragon Crescent blade again, to charge into the area where the dust had not yet dissipated. Flood the 7 armies. Behead Yan Liang and Wen Chao. Boom. Thump thump thump. Jun Changxiao was blasted out again, and with difficulty stabilized his body. Another mouthful of blood spurted out, and his face turned slightly pale. Everyone's mouth twitched. With the powerful force of Master Huang, he was beaten and vomited blood twice. How could he still stand? Why did he look like he was only slightly injured? Whoosh! A strong wind whistled out, blowing away the dust that filled the martial arts field. Master Huang appeared and said, "You took 5 of my great gathering spirit seals. Master Jun's physical body is very strong." So. Jun Changxiao raised his sleeve to wipe off the blood stains, and raised the Azure Dragon Crescent blade again to slash. Although the force was very strong, the opponent could easily dodge it. With the help of the system, he has reached the realm of martial arts master in more than a year, since he came to the other world. It can be said that he has made rapid progress, but the opponent is too strong. This is the peak martial sect, above which there are martial kings, martial emperors, martial saints and even martial emperors. So, how can I lose to a peak martial sect? Who? Jun Changxiao tightly grasped the King Lang Yan Yu sword with both hands, and a great spiritual energy emerged from his body, and his black hair was wildly flying. Sect Master Huang was surprised. Jun Changxiao said coldly, "Sect Master Huang is the first person who can force me to use my trump card." Trump card? Alliance Master Qin and the bigwigs of the alliance sneered. In the case of a huge disparity in strength, what trump card can you use to fight back? Sect Master Huang frowned slightly. He smelled a sense of danger, although it was very weak and not very strong. Was it because of the existence of a powerful trump card that made him dare to fight? In this case, it really cannot be underestimated. The best way is to strike first and prevent him from using the trump card so as to win the challenge. Sect Master Huang would not be stupid enough to take the opponent's trump card, so he decided to end the game to save a little face for his sect. Thinking of this, he rushed over with his body skills, releasing powerful spiritual energy with both palms, and the great gathering spirit seal gathered and came out, carrying the momentum of a violent storm. The 2 palm prints each carried a force of 500,000 pounds. Sect Master Huang is serious. It's over. A typical battle with a huge disparity in strength. The strong men from all forces discussed it. Even Yi Xingchen believed that the attack of the sect master of Shengpan sect was aimed at ending the fight. The sect master would definitely not be able to bear it. If he did not retreat in time, he would probably be seriously injured. Lu Kai and Qian frowned slightly and transmitted the message, "Retreat." If he took the initiative to retreat outside the martial arts arena at this time, the opponent might consider withdrawing some of his strength for the sake of face, so as not to end up with serious injuries. Retreat? Jun Changxiao straightened his back, his eyes full of fighting spirit, and said, "Tell me loudly what the first purpose of the Tegu sect is." This sentence was transmitted in a collective way, and all the disciples of the Tegu sect heard it clearly. What is the first purpose? There are many, but the one that made them remember the most is only one sentence, that is. Everyone shouted loudly in unison using the sound transmission technique, "Be a person of iron bones, and do things of iron bones." Yes, this is the first purpose of the Tegu sect. Step. Jun Changxiao took a step forward, and a violent green airwave suddenly erupted from his body, instantly gathering behind him, and transformed into a man in a green robe half wrapped in armor, crouching silkworm eyebrows, phoenix eyes, and 5 long beards. Han shouting how, Guan Yu. Swish. Jun Changxiao raised his sword angrily, and Guan Eri behind him also made the same move, and his empty eyes suddenly showed the luster of righteousness. Swish. The azure dragon crescent blade, one real and one fake, suddenly swung out, and the space suddenly became distorted, as if it was chopped into pieces by a sword. Everyone's eyes widened. Boom. Boom. The 2 attacks of the Great Gathering Spirit Seal were directly cut off. Master Huang had no time to be shocked, because after breaking the moves, the blue blade light rushed over with its remaining power. Very strong. Very strong. He didn't dare to take it head on, so he could only continue to dodge. However, as soon as he took a step, he saw Jun Changxiao rushing over with a sword on the opposite side, and suddenly shouted, "Do you dare to fight me?" Swish. The azure dragon crescent blade cut through the void with the momentum of sweeping thousands of troops, and the blue light burst out. At first, it seemed very small, but in an instant it became infinitely large, directly covering most of the martial arts field. Chapter 299 Creating a Miracle. I thought I could win by relying on the advantage of my weapon. After realizing the gap between myself and the peak martial master, Jun Changxiao could only use the special effect, the soul of the martial saint. Not bad. Dare to fight. This is what he relies on. I can kill a rare stone beast by activating the special effect. Now that I have broken through the 2nd grade martial master, can I still not handle a peak martial master? Hoo. With the blessing of Guan Eri, Jun Changxiao slashed with a knife, and immediately formed a green blade light that covered most of the martial arts field. He slammed over with a strong momentum. Kakaka, the sound of friction with the air, made people feel as if the space was really torn apart. My god. Everyone was stunned and frightened. The disciples of the Tigu school were also dumbfounded. The most shocked was Yi Xingchen. He looked at the majestic figure behind the head of the sect, and couldn't help himself and said, is it a weapon spirit? Spiritual weapons have weapon spirits inside. This kind of weapon is similar to a beast fantasy beast. It is a mutant and very rare. Most of them are controlled by top masters. The head of the sect has it. This is definitely a surprise to Yi Di. Not good. The face of the Huang clan leader changed drastically. The attack range of the green blade has blocked all the positions that he can avoid. There is nowhere to hide. If it is just a wide range, just take it hard. But the power of the knife made his back cold, and he realized that the starting power must be more than 600,000 pounds. Can't take it. If you take it, you will be seriously injured if you don't die. While thinking, the Huang clan leader made the right choice and retreated to the back immediately, trying to keep a distance and let the power of the knife weaken before taking it hard. But, hiding at the edge of the martial arts field, dragging out a huge stream of green knife energy, the power not only did not weaken, but became stronger. If it was someone else, they would definitely be in a mess. But Master Huang was a peak martial master after all. When the situation was extremely unfavorable, he could still remain calm, and shouted in a deep voice, "Mountain mirror." Buzz. The space in front of him blurred, and a palm-sized mirror emerged. The mirror surface flashed with light, and quickly condensed a smooth mirror-like defensive barrier in front of him. Facing the fierce knife, Master Huang directly sacrificed his top-grade initial level defensive treasure. Weapons are a must-have for warriors. Regardless of the quality, almost everyone has them, but functional treasures are very rare. Boom. It was said that it was late, and it was fast. The green blade light carrying the power of the martial saint's soul slammed hard on the smooth mirror-like defensive barrier. Bang. It didn't even stabilize for a breath, and it broke directly. The mountain-suppressing mirror standing in the air dimmed even more, and then fell to the ground with it. The barrier was broken, and Master Huang, who was controlling it, was confused. He staggered back more than 10 steps, and finally stepped outside the martial arts field. He could no longer restrain himself, and spurted blood from his mouth. As for the green blade energy, it was also offset, after colliding with the mirror, and disappeared into the void. The entire martial arts field was shrouded in a foggy green airwave. Strongest Sect, silent. All forces opened their mouths and stared, their eyes full of shock and horror. Sect Master Huang even activated a treasure like the Zenshin mirror, but was still cut out and spit out blood. It was so scary. Gudu. Alliance Master Qin swallowed unconsciously, and cold sweat and chills instantly rose on his face and back. It turned out that the guy had such a terrifying trump card. If he used it in Heoki Sect, even if he had 9 lives, it would not be enough for him to kill with one sword. Fear and terror were imprinted in Alliance Master Qin's heart. The scene of Jun Changxiao's sword cut, for him and others, it would be difficult to erase with time. Ma Yunteng and Wang Danglin were dumbfounded. At that moment, they finally understood why Sect Master Jun dared to fight. It turned out that he had such a powerful trump card. Of course, the two guessed the same as Yi Xingchen. The sword engraved with the Azure Dragon gave off a tall and majestic phantom, which must be the weapon spirit. This is much rarer than the mountain guarding mirror. Equipment with weapon spirits takes time to be nurtured with a 1 in 10,000 chance, while the treasure can rely on the formation master to bless the formation, so the two are not comparable. The phantom of Guarneri behind him gradually disappeared, and the sign attribute was also integrated into the Azure Dragon Crescent Blade. Jun Chang smiled and said, Master Huang, thank you. The special effect of the soul of the martial saint was used to repel the leader of the Strongest Sect, but no matter what, this battle was won. Moreover, because his own strength was strong enough, after the special effect ended, although Master Jun felt tired, he did not collapse on the ground, and still stood proudly. Ding. Complete the hidden task, reverse defeat, and get 500 contribution points. Ding. Sect contribution value 3705/2000. Ding. Sect contribution value overflows. Host. Ding. Congratulations to the host for completing the hidden task, reverse defeat, triggering the hidden reward, and getting one top grade qualification transformation liquid, which has been transferred to the space ring. Jun Chang smiled. With such a huge gap in strength, defeating the peak martial sect not only earned 500 contribution points, but also got a bottle of qualification transformation liquid. He must be in a good mood. Strongest Sect. It's really my blessed land. Sect Master Huang sighed and said, Master Jun is young, but he is very powerful. I admire him. He persuaded him verbally, but he was not convinced in his heart. If we fight again, I will definitely defeat him with my own weapons. Unfortunately, the battle is already decided, and it's not like you twisted the lid of a Coke bottle, which can give you the opportunity to have another bottle. Jun will take his leave first. Jun Changxiao bowed, turned, and left, and prayed secretly, don't fight the younger ones anymore. Come with the older ones, otherwise my body can't bear it. He was exhausted, and it would be difficult for him to recover without a rest. If it was according to the normal fantasy plot, a Supreme Elder suddenly appeared to challenge, then he would definitely be in trouble. Overthinking. There was no Supreme Elder in Strongest Sect. Jun Changxiao led his disciples in the public eye. How did he come in, and how did he leave in a grand manner? Pop. The speakers were turned on and the music sounded. Don't look at me as just a sheep. Sheep are so smart that it's hard to imagine. No matter how high the sky is, their mood is still unrestrained. Although this song is a bit childish, it is very appropriate, because Jun Changxiao and others who entered the Strongest Sect are just like a group of sheep. In the end, they beat the wolf, and left in a leisurely manner. Listening to the incomprehensible voice, the warriors from all forces fell silent. It was only 2 hours. The Tegu Sect and the Strongest Sect fought 74 games. From the outer gate, the inner gate, the direct disciples, the elders, to the sect master, they all won. This must have created a miracle. There is no doubt about it. When the news spreads, it will surely cause a sensation. I'm very fortunate to be a witness to a miracle created by a 7th-rate sect. Oh, by the way. When he walked to the front door, Jun Changxiao stopped and said loudly, my Tegu Sect recruits talents from all over the world. Talents who want to change jobs can consider it. The corners of everyone's mouth twitched. The head of the Tegu Sect dared to poach so openly. He was really arrogant and arrogant. 2 updates at midnight. Chapter 300. The Intermediate Mall has many good things. To outsiders, the 7th stream Iron Bone Sect from top to bottom, defeated the Holy Spring Sect, which was equivalent to creating a miracle. But in Jun Changxiao's view, this was a normal operation. After all, the strength of himself and his disciples was not sudden, but foreseeable. Just ask the Holy Spring Sect, does it have a shaping pill, a shaping room, and a training tower? Are there various exercises and pills that can be learned and used at will? Not to mention the 5th-rate sect, even the 3rd and 4th-rate sects do not have them. Of course, various resources can only show that the Iron Bone Sect has potential. Compared with the real big sects, it not only lacks many disciples, but also lacks foundation. Disciples can be recruited, but foundation must be accumulated over time. Otherwise, in the eyes of the world, no matter how strong the Iron Bone Sect is, it will eventually be just a new sect. Master Jun. On the way down the mountain, City Lord Z gave a thumbs up and said, "You and your disciples' performance today really made us Qingyang County Mayor proud." Of course. Master Rai said, 74 challenges, not a single one lost. If I hadn't seen it with my own eyes, I would have found it hard to believe. The heads of the various families also praised one after another, feeling very happy. Ma Yunteng, who was accompanying them, frowned and said, "Master Jun and Master Huang fought and used spiritual weapons. If this gets out, it may attract others' attention." He and Wang Donglin firmly believed that Jun Changxiao was able to defeat the master of Shengquan sect, not by relying on his strong cultivation, but with the help of the Azure Dragon Crescent Blade. In fact, it was true. Jun Changxiao said, "What Elder Ma means is that someone will come to take Jun's sword." Weapons with weapon spirits are undoubtedly magical weapons in the Starfall continent, and naturally they will attract the attention of others. Wang Donglin said. After witnessing the power of the Azure Dragon Crescent Blade, the two were also very tempted, but because of their relationship with Jun Changxiao, they did not have the idea of robbing the treasure. It is normal for those powerful people who have no friendship to do things to steal treasures under the control of greed. After learning about this, Yi Xingchen has the most experience in this kind of thing. When the disappearance of the Taixuan Sutra was spread, he was jointly targeted by several martial emperors. Because the treasure was secretly plotted by a group of masters, it is the beginning of a fantasy novel of the rebirth of the strong. However, our Lord Yidi is powerful and beat several martial emperors to flee in embarrassment. It's a pity that he was finally defeated by a woman. Alas. Jun Chang smiled and said, "The man is innocent, but he is guilty of holding the treasure. In the past, he dared to show off and pretend without scruples in Qingyang County because he had a sniper rifle and a large formation to protect the sect. But coming to the Shengquan sect to challenge, the news will definitely spread throughout the Xinjiang continent. Once the strong men like the Martial King and the Martial Emperor are alarmed, the gun and the formation will definitely be useless. Damn it. If I had known this, I would have admitted defeat." Sect Master Jun can be arrogant and domineering without restraint when he is absolutely sure of self-protection, but he does not think that top powerhouses like the Martial King and the Martial Emperor can be dealt with by himself. The system said, so, pretending to be powerful will pay a price. Get lost. Jun Chang laughed and scolded. Ma Yunteng said, "Please rest assured, Sect Master Jun, when we return to the sect, we will apply to the sect master, hoping to form an alliance with your sect." City Lord Z and others suddenly widened their eyes. Alliances between forces are a very common phenomenon, but it is unprecedented for a 5th-rate sect to take the initiative to form an alliance with a 7th-rate sect. Yes. Press the Shengquan sect to the ground and rub it. Such a sect has unlimited potential in the future, and it is understandable that the Kangshan sect takes the initiative to make peace. Wang Donglin said seriously, "You and I will form an alliance. Anyone who dares to attack Sect Master Jun will be an enemy of our Kangshan sect." The words of one of the 4 elders are very important. The alliance is a done deal. Jun Changxiao clasped his fists and said, "Thank you, 2 elders, and thank you Kangshan sect. Since our 2 sects have formed an alliance, I will definitely visit you in person. It is better to make friends than to have many enemies. As for visiting, I will definitely not come empty-handed, but bring some elixirs or something as a gift. You are good to me, I'm better to you." This is Jun Changxiao's usual style. Of course. Jun Changxiao also knows that if he is really targeted by a strong man, even if the Kangshan sect protects him, it will be useless, so he still has to rely on himself. How to rely on himself? Swish. He opened the system panel and clicked on the intermediate mall. Relying on others in a dangerous alien world is definitely not as safe as relying on goods. The head of the intermediate mall Jun didn't dare to buy it before because the contribution value was too little, but now it overflows 1705 points, so naturally he has to spend it within 24 hours. You can't buy it casually. Jun Changxiao murmured, you have to use it where it counts. Looking carefully, his eyes suddenly fixed on a product called Protective Sect Array. Item, a medium-grade defensive formation. Effect, after use, a medium-grade defensive formation can be arranged in the sect to prevent non-sect members from entering and leaving. Time limit, use immediately. Price, 1000 contribution points. Note, after the formation is successfully arranged, it is turned on by default, and 10 contribution points are consumed every day. Jun Changxiao said with a smile, this thing can not only protect yourself, but also protect the sect. It is definitely worth buying. Not bad. The system said, 5 stars are recommended. Jun Changxiao did not buy it directly, but continued to browse the products inside. Soon, he saw a pill recipe called Martial Master Pill. This thing was created by a powerful alchemist. A warrior can directly upgrade from a peak martial apprentice to a martial master after taking it. The point is, there are no side effects. Jun Changxiao said, this is also a good thing. The sect now has cyclone pills, which can solve the problem of breaking through from the level of opening meridians to martial apprentices. If this kind of martial master pill is equipped, it will definitely allow disciples to improve faster. Continuing to look down, I saw another weapon casting formula called the middle grade cold sword. The things in the middle level mall are really good. Jun Changxiao wants to buy them all, but due to the contribution value limit, he decided to buy the middle grade sect protection array and martial arts pill first. Ding. The host consumes 1000 contribution points and obtains 1 sect protection array, which has been transferred to the space ring. Ding. The host consumes 1000 contribution points and obtains 1 martial arts pill, which has been transferred to the space ring. Ding. Sect contribution value 1705/2000. Master Jun felt a little distressed to spend 2000 contribution points at once. However, one can bring stronger protection to himself and the sect, and the other can bring realm improvement to the disciples, which is still very worthwhile. The pill formula appeared in the space ring and automatically matched to the alchemy pavilion. Jun Changxiao pulled out the panel and clicked on the martial arts pill, and the refining materials were immediately presented. This kind of awesome pill requires a total of 10 materials, especially the first few, which are very precious, just by listening to the name. As it happened, the head of the AI family was accompanying him. Jun Changxiao asked about the materials, and when AI Shangni found out, he was surprised and said, Master Jun, these medicinal materials you mentioned are very precious. Does your store have them? Jun Changxiao said. AI Shangni thought for a while and said, yes, but not much. I can barely make 3 or 5 copies. Only 3 or 5 copies. Jun Changxiao was a little disappointed. After all, he thought that he could produce them in large quantities, so that the disciples who had not broken through to the martial arts master level could have 1 copy each. P.S. The knife that installed the peeler cut off a large piece of skin from my left index finger, and also cut out a diamond shape, and then bandaged it with blood gushing out. As a 2-finger typing for many years, my typing skills have been wasted by half. What does this mean? That's right, my peeler is not only very sharp for peeling fruit skins, but also very good for peeling meat. Don't ask what brand it is, I won't tell you. Asking for votes. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.